You can't change a person. He absolutely hated that phrase. It felt like it was telling him to give up on the possibility of change. A group of guys sat around a table discussing some philosophical topics over a few beers. The future teacher had just finished his exams and was celebrating with friends. They all raised their glasses to toast a good worker, Shin Jong-yoon. As they talked about the school where he would be working, one of the friends noticed something strange. His blood ran cold as he realized what he was seeing. He pointed out the guy they had just mentioned and told the others. The rest of the group turned in horror to the back corner of the restaurant. There sat a man alone, downing his third bottle of soju. He was known as the thug who was always beating people up. The men tried to remember his name, Kim Jong-chi. His name literally translated to idiot. They continued discussing him. Rumors had it that after graduation he had become a gangster. But then another guy said that was nonsense. He had heard Jong-chi was working in delivery and had gotten into an accident that broke his leg. However, they all agreed on one thing: this guy was mean and bad news. How much had he drunk already? Suddenly, Jong-chi noticed the stares directed at him. Jong-yoon told everyone to be quiet, thinking he might have heard them. But the others weren't worried. What was there to fear? They weren't in high school anymore. They were adults. One even bragged about hitting the gym and doing 3 sets of 350 reps. Yet it seemed Jong-chi really did hear everything, or at least caught some of it. He finished the last drop in his glass. Then he slammed it down on the table. He drew the group's attention, and everyone genuinely got scared. After that, Jong-chi aggressively left money on the table, making a loud scene. He abruptly stood up and headed for the exit. It seemed he was just uncomfortable listening to all that talk about him and decided to leave. However, Jong-yoon noticed something was off about his walk. He told the others that it looked like the rumors about the accident were true, but the rest didn't care. They just mocked the drunk. Then one of the friends asked Jong-yoon, did he believe that even a loser like that could change? Jong-yoon didn't get it. Were they challenging him? Meanwhile, Jong-chi was leaving the bar, the last words echoing in his mind about how such a loser couldn't be changed. He realized they were talking about him. It seemed 3 bottles of soju were too much, and everything went downhill from there. In fact, Jong-chi always ended his nights like this. Suddenly, memories crashed over him like an avalanche. He recalled the times he roamed the city on his fast bike. His partner had told him that where they were headed, there were a lot of punks from the area, and they were just 2. He suggested bringing someone else along. But Jong-chi, his real name, found that irritating. He said his partner could bail, he'd go alone. Then he slammed on the key and shot ahead. With a trick, he cut off a truck. The driver swerved sharply. It nearly caused an accident. The man yelled at Jong-chi, clearly rattled. His partner said they barely made it through. Meanwhile, they were already arriving at their destination. There was a whole gang of punks surrounding the 2 men. The poor guys got beaten badly. Their lungs could barely breathe normally. The boss mocked them, calling them punks from Jihak. Suddenly, he heard the screech of brakes and the smell of burnt rubber. Now that was something new. The boss liked it. Jong-chi arrived with his partner. There were just the 2 of them, but the punks were many. Yet he didn't care at all. He despised all those people. But the boss didn't even know who Jong-chi was or why he showed up. Then he declared that he was Jong-chi from Jihak. The gang froze for a second. Then they burst out laughing, mocking his name, calling him Jong-chi. But Jong-chi didn't care. He calmly stepped off his ride. Let those punks laugh while they had the chance. Meanwhile, a few hours passed. Jong-chi was breathing heavily, his face bruised and bloodied. But beside him lay the beaten, unconscious bodies of those punks. When Jong-chi finished, he immediately tossed away his weapon. He hopped on his bike. He had nothing else to do. The guys asked why Jong-chi had come back so late. He replied that those weren't the best words of gratitude. Jong-chi ordered them to bring him food the next day when they met at school. After that, he sped off, not waiting for a response. Honestly, they didn't even think Jong-chi would actually come to save them. They weren't even friends. His partner sat by all those beaten bodies, unable to believe Jong-chi had taken them all on by himself. But he definitely understood that this kid was something else. He would become a legend the next day. As Jong-chi raced back, a crooked smile suddenly appeared on his face. Then he just burst out laughing. He talked to himself like a madman, unable to believe what he had just seen. Those punk faces from Ilshin. Jong-chi was a bit scared at first, but he had taken on 8. He felt incredibly cool at that moment. He got so caught up in the moment that his emotions took over. So much so that he didn't notice the truck heading straight for him. All he caught was the bright glare of headlights. And in that moment, Jong-chi realized everything had gone wrong. He was thrown off his bike and flipped through the air several times. Then Zhang understood he had become just a hollow legend. His moment of glory didn't last long. Events snapped back to reality. Now Zhang was different. The fiery spark inside him was gone. He had turned into just a bitter old man. He could hear everything that group was saying about him. The rumors they spread about him. They called him Zhang then. Such a stupid name. And Kim Jong-ji was really annoyed by that. His name was Zhang, not Zhongqi. Blood boiled in his veins. Suddenly, footsteps approached from behind, along with a comment about a terrible stench. Zhang turned at the sound. A gang of guys was coming toward him. One of them turned out to be that boss from Ilshin. He told the old man to get lost and not stand by his vomit. Zhang stood in shock. He recognized that punk. The guy told him he didn't look deaf, so he repeated himself. The man exhaled heavily. It seemed he really was having a bad day this time. The guy heard his mumbling, but Zhang was already walking away, saying goodbye. He left, limping heavily. The guy stared at him for a while, finding it oddly interesting. His partner approached to ask what had happened, but he didn't explain anything, just waved it off, saying someone had gotten sick. He called Zhang a limping idiot, and he heard that. It made him straighten up, his body taut like a string. Zhang called out to those idiots and asked what that punk had just said. This time, not much time passed. Zhang lay on the floor, breathing heavily, his face bloodied and bruised. He said those little punks really annoyed him. He wished death upon them all, then. This time, Zhang lay completely alone. Meanwhile, the man was heading home. He glanced at his wallet. He still had money in it. Zhang was glad those punks hadn't stolen his wallet at least. Suddenly, something caught his attention. He saw a strange old man sitting in his yard, begging. Zhang was quite surprised that there were still beggars around. But why be surprised if he lived in a poor neighborhood? As he walked past, the old man asked for alms. Zhang ignored him, and the old man said he was very hungry, to which the man finally replied that he had no money. After that, the beggar burst out laughing. He said lying was a crime, and with crime comes punishment. Zhang turned back to the old man. He heard everything. Then he turned around and called him a psycho. The old man commented on Zhang limp, saying that judging by it, he had already been punished. His blood began to boil, until he completely lost it and could no longer hold himself back, not caring that this was an old man. Zhang yelled at the old man to watch his words since he was already having a bad day, and he couldn't control his anger. The old man just laughed and asked if that was why he was so snappy. Then Zhang couldn't think of anything better than to just flip his bowl of coins. Everything spilled out, but the bowl survived. Zhang wanted to show his strength and superiority over the old man. He advised the old man to act his age and not cause a scene, especially if he didn't want to say goodbye to life. The old man didn't lift his eyes the whole time and didn't rush to collect the money. Suddenly, someone approached him from behind. Not just approached, this someone literally landed from the sky. It was a demon or an angel with huge bright white wings. He landed next to the old man and asked if he should take the soul of that punk since he was hopeless. Surprisingly, the old man refused, saying there was no need for that. Zhang walked on, hearing nothing and not looking back. The old man took off his hat, which had covered his face. Then he declared that he would handle this poor soul himself. The old man's voice suddenly dropped an octave and didn't resemble that hoarse, frail tone at all. So are you curious about how Zhang ended up like this? Let's start from the beginning. This sweet little boy is Kim Jong-ji, and this happiest man in the world is his father. He gave his son a name with a special meaning. But there was one catch. Kids can be cruel, and over time, Zhang got a nickname. The kids threw trash at the poor boy, trying to provoke him somehow. And honestly, they succeeded. They called him Idiot Zhang because that's what his name meant, fool. And what's the big deal? It's just a nickname. Everyone gets them. But in reality, it wasn't so innocent. The boys didn't like that Zhang ignored them, so they kept bothering him. They suggested he change his name if he didn't like being Idiot Zhang. Zhang endured all their taunts for a long time. But eventually he snapped. Zhang asked them to stop, but that only made the little punks laugh even harder. So he resorted to fists when words didn't work. Zhang just couldn't hold back and punch the kid. He couldn't even explain what happened, but it felt like some other force was guiding him. However, that day, Zhang realized something. He saw his classmate, the one he knocked out with a single blow. Zhang understood that he was much stronger than he thought he was. As reality set back in, Zhang limped home. He was drenched in sweat from climbing uphill when he suddenly noticed something. It was late, but the light was still spilling out from his house. Zhang was starting to boil over. He opened the door, and his anger knew no bounds. The TV was on, this late at night, and there was a mess everywhere. Trash and food wrappers scattered around. His dad was passed out in front of the TV. Chon Ji felt his eye twitching. Everything about this was infuriating. He kicked his dad hard with his foot, wanting to see if he was alive. The man woke up immediately. This was nothing new for him, but he didn't understand what was happening or where all this aggression was coming from. Chon Ji asked when his dad was going to pay him back for the rent. The man just hung his head in shame, and his son couldn't calm down. How much longer was he going to live off his kid? His dad promised he would definitely find a job. He barely finished speaking when Chon Ji interrupted him, asking how he planned to look for a job while sitting in front of the TV. Then Chon Ji declared that he didn't have any money either now, so the man should live however he saw fit. He came just to say that and was about to leave, but his dad stopped him, begging for just one more chance. Then Chon Ji asked if the man wanted him to break everything in the house right now. His dad closed his eyes, holding back tears. After that, he quietly apologized to his son. Chon Ji froze at the door. Then he told his dad to die if he really felt sorry. After that, he left the house, where the light was no longer on. Chon Ji didn't notice, but someone was watching him. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Chon Ji's apartment, specifically apartment 304. There, he spent his time playing video games. Chon Ji poured all his anger onto the clueless players and talked about what he would do to their moms. Suddenly, his phone vibrated aggressively on the bed. Chon Ji turned around, wondering who could be texting him so late. No one ever texted him. Curiosity piqued, he saw a message saying he was cursed. Was this a joke? Some kids were just messing with him. Didn't they have anything better to do? Chon Ji found it irritating. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Honestly, Chon Ji felt a bit nervous. Everything was so strange. He didn't rush to open the door until someone outside said it was a delivery. Chon Ji was very curious about what was going on. He hadn't ordered anything. With a quick motion, he opened the door. There stood a young, beautiful girl, but she wasn't holding anything. So where was the delivery? Chon Ji was starting to get annoyed. Definitely some kids playing pranks. The only thing that unsettled him was the color of the stranger's eyes. Were those contacts? Why were they red? Chon Ji spoke first and asked where the delivery was. The girl asked if she could come in for a minute. Such audacity really ticked him off. He told her to get lost, adding that he didn't believe in that nonsense. After that, he slammed the door right in her face. He thought that was the end of it when suddenly her hand stopped the door from closing. It wouldn't shut. And that's when Chon Ji's heart started racing. Who the hell was standing in front of him? Blood began to ooze from her hands. Chon Ji just slammed the door on her fingers, but she didn't make a sound. Then the girl slowly opened the door. She politely addressed Chon Ji by name and said he had received a curse from God. The girl stepped inside without asking for permission. Chon Ji backed away. He was scared and started to threaten her, saying he would hit her if it came to that. Suddenly, Chon Ji stopped mid-sentence. It was because he started feeling something strange. His legs suddenly lit up. Then Chon Ji felt the pain in his leg vanish. The girl then recited Chon Ji's entire biography. He was 27 years old, unemployed, an immoral person with an aggressive nature. When his leg was fine, he was one of the main guys in a gang. She knew about the dirty, horrible things Chon Ji had done and how he had brought God's wrath upon himself. And this was the price for those sins, to return to the path of righteousness. After those words, Chon Ji just couldn't take it anymore. He suddenly stepped on the leg that no longer hurt, and he swung at this religious fanatic. But she wasn't afraid. Chon Ji stopped right in front of her face when he realized she didn't even flinch. The guy really couldn't believe it. Then Chon Ji got so scared that he started stuttering and asked who she was. It seemed like she was expecting that question. But instead of words, she finally pulled her hands out of her pockets, and there was a knife in her hand. Then she suddenly plunged it into Chon Ji's stomach. A sharp pain pierced his body, and blood splattered across his face. He just couldn't understand what was happening. Why was she doing this to him? After that, Chon Ji fell. The girl seemed to look through him. Her voice suddenly became very deep, as if coming from far away. She approached Chon Ji. She said she had come on God's orders. And from that moment on, she would accompany Chon Ji on his path to redemption. The guy was genuinely scared. He had never been so afraid before. Then she declared that she was Chon Ji's guardian angel. He looked at her in horror, his heart racing. Chon Ji held his wound, which was bleeding heavily. Suddenly, out of fear, he felt himself getting sick. Everything started to blur before his eyes, and Chon Ji simply passed out. He fought until the end, holding on. But eventually his eyelids became heavy, and he fell asleep. It didn't hurt. When Chon Ji fell asleep, he remembered that terrible situation again. The accident that changed his life. He was in shock. Not understanding what had happened, everyone rushed to him, surrounding him. The ambulance arrived quickly and provided first aid. Over time, Chon Ji began to feel a sharp, intense pain in his leg. He could barely feel it. Then he grabbed the paramedic. Chon Ji cried and begged for help, for someone to save him. But his grip started to weaken, and eventually he let go of the paramedic. Chon Ji lost consciousness and his hand fell. In his last moments, he begged for help because he didn't want to die like this. Why was the pain disappearing? Suddenly, Chon Ji woke up and felt the pain leaving his body. He sat up and saw that his leg and the side where the wound was had started to glow. Chon Ji was very surprised when his side began to itch, as if someone was stitching up his wound. Then his gaze shifted to his leg. The knee had stopped throbbing. The girl who called herself his guardian angel was still standing nearby. She told him to look at his wounds. Chon Ji didn't understand anything. He was afraid to even move. The girl started urging him on, her voice very determined. Then he slowly leaned down to his stomach. He lifted his shirt and couldn't believe his eyes. There was no wound. He could have thought he was going crazy, but the blood proved that the wound had indeed been there. Chon Ji couldn't hold back and said he had definitely seen the girl stab him with a knife. And she didn't deny it. She even showed him the knife. But she promised that Chon Ji wouldn't die while she was around. He was still staring at her, unable to comprehend anything. But she was getting at the fact that this should serve as proof that she was his guardian angel. Meanwhile, several hours passed. Chon Ji cleaned everything up and gathered his thoughts. The angel was sitting on his bed. She was carefully examining everything around, looking around. The guy had already processed everything she had told him and asked about the curse from God. And that's why he had to fulfill the wishes of those who wished it? And she was the angel who came to help him with that? He genuinely wanted to make sense of this nonsense. Then Chon Ji asked why he had received the curse. But it turned out that the angel only delivered the message. She didn't know why he had been cursed. Then she asked if Chon Ji really believed there was no reason for it. Overall, she was acting very strangely, like some kind of lunatic. Chon Ji didn't understand what was wrong with her. Could this just be a prank? Was he being filmed by a hidden camera? Where could he wave? But in reality, Chon Ji realized he had more than enough reasons and couldn't even imagine. She explained that God came to Earth in various forms, and this was a well-known secret among them, the angels. But according to her, God was too petty. This information somehow struck Chon Ji deeply. The angel said that the reasons for the curse could indeed be trivial, almost insignificant. Then Chon Ji suddenly remembered. He replayed recent memories, his actions, and he recalled the old man who had asked for alms. Chon Ji had insulted him badly, and the old man had acted very strangely. While he was analyzing, the angel was happy that now Chon Ji had the chance to complete his mission and resolve everything, to rid himself of the curse. Then she stood up and introduced herself as Shi Young. She wasn't even 100 years old yet, so she was still a very young angel in training. Shi Young told Chon Ji to take care of her. She extended her hand to him, but the guy asked her not to rush because he was very confused right now. However, in reality, the angel didn't understand why he felt that way. Then Chon Ji confessed that he was an atheist. Shi Young looked at the guy with wide eyes. Then she finally asked, "So what?" Chon Ji explained that he had left the faith, and now suddenly there was a curse, an angel. Did she really think it was that easy to just believe and accept? And that's when Shi Young went into shock. She had provided all the evidence. Then she pulled out the knife and asked if she should prove her powers again. Chon Ji immediately refused. Just then, another message came through. He pulled out his phone to check, and when he saw it, he couldn't believe his eyes. Because he saw some old man. The message said to fulfill the wishes of this person. His name was Oh Chang-soo. But in reality, Chon Ji didn't recognize the beggar in the photo. He had no idea who it was. However, Shi Young was thrilled that the mission had already begun. She wanted to start right away. But Chon Ji didn't want to rush. He hadn't even said he agreed yet. He asked what would happen if he refused. Shi Young paused. She seemed completely unprepared for that question. She stepped closer to Chon Ji and confidently said that if he refused, he'd end up in hell. He froze in shock. Then he exhaled in relief, a smile creeping onto his face. Shi Young didn't understand why he found that so funny. Chon Ji stifled his grin and said he hadn't even thought about it. Then he suddenly switched to threats. If this little lady thought hell scared him, she was mistaken. But Shi Young wasn't scared at all. A big smile appeared on her face. Then she tapped something on her phone and set a timer for 1 minute, so Chon Ji would end up in hell. She hit the start button, and just like that, Chon Ji seemed to vanish. The timer started, seconds ticking away. Chon Ji was sweating bullets, and it felt like it was all happening in a loop. Finally, there was just 1 second left. At last, the minute was up, and Chon Ji found himself back in his room facing Shi-young. She put her phone down and asked how he felt. Chon Ji looked like he aged 70 years. His eyes were wide, and his body felt like it hadn't had water in ages. With a trembling voice, he said he agreed. Shi-young said she didn't hear him. Chon Ji spoke a bit louder. It was really hard for him to get the words out. Then he yelled as loud as he could that he agreed. Shi-young waited a few seconds. Then a smile broke out on her face. She was so happy that Chon Ji had agreed. Meanwhile, a few days passed, and the scene shifted to a rooftop. A young guy stood at the edge. He was completely beaten up, his gaze empty, staring down. His hands trembled. He was genuinely scared. Looking down made his insides freeze. The guy kept telling himself he could do it. It wasn't that hard. Just close his eyes, and he shut his eyes and was almost ready to go, when suddenly a voice asked what he was doing. It was Chon Ji standing behind him with a stern look. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Chon Ji said that if he ended his life, he'd go to hell. The guy just stared back at him in silence. Chon Ji added that it was really bad there. He spoke from experience. Meanwhile, the scene shifted back 3 days. Chon Ji opened his phone to the message about Oh Chang-soo. He looked at the man he had come to see. It seemed like the same person. He wasn't mistaken. Chon Ji asked if he was Oh Chang-soo. He didn't know how to approach this, how to talk to him. The man admitted it, but didn't understand how Chon Ji knew him or who he was. Honestly, Chon Ji didn't even know what he was doing. He felt like such an idiot. But he gathered his strength and cleared his throat. Then he asked Oh Chang-soo what his wish was. The man was stunned at first, then quickly said he wanted at least 10,000 pounds won to eat some hot soup. Chon Ji had that money on him. He handed it over, and the man shouted with joy. Chon Ji couldn't believe that was enough. Suddenly, his phone vibrated again. A new message had come in. It said the mission was complete, just 10,000 won for soup. Chon Ji stared blankly at the screen. Then he felt disappointed. Why was it so trivial? Just then, out of nowhere, Shi-young appeared, celebrating and congratulating him on his first mission. Chon Ji yelled at her, telling her not to scare him like that again. Who just pops up like that? Out of nowhere. Shi-young asked if she should follow him everywhere to make it obvious to passers-by. But Chon Ji wasn't having it. Then Shi-young showed him how she could quietly disappear and reappear. Then she suddenly got close to him and said not to worry if he didn't see her around, because she would always be there with Chon Ji Sha. She pronounced each part of his name separately, which really freaked Chon Ji out. So the first mission turned out to be easier than he thought. And the rest of the missions too. Someone asked for at least a day off. Someone else wanted to ruin that jerk's wedding. The video was posted on social media, and someone decided the groom was saving himself from the future. Kids from kindergarten believed that Superbag's big fists existed. Chon Ji took off that bag hat. It was so hot under it. He had already completed 10 missions. When would this all end? Shi-young watched Chon Ji silently. She always did that. It was like she was pondering her words all the time. Then she replied that she didn't know. That irritated Chon Ji. If she didn't know, then who did? Shi-young said only one God knew. And that cliche really annoyed him today. Then Shi-young suddenly pulled out a drink from somewhere and offered it to Chon Ji when she noticed he was sweating like crazy. Honestly, the guy didn't even try to figure out where she got all this from. So he just stripped off everything. And after taking a sip of the drink, Chon Ji could finally breathe and just live. Shi-young stared at him silently for a while. Then she suddenly asked how he was doing. Chon Ji didn't understand what she meant. It turned out she was referring to the wishes he had fulfilled. In that time, he had made 10 people happy. Chon Ji was in shock, staring at Shi-young. He stared for a long time. Then he asked what he was supposed to feel. Chon Ji was still in shock. What difference did it make? He was doing all this just to avoid going to hell. He didn't understand what connection he had to those people. He was just making them happy. Didn't they need a god or something? Shi-young said the kids they met this time were genuinely happy. But for Chon Ji, that didn't mean anything. Sooner or later, they'd find out that bear didn't exist. And just saying it didn't exist would be better. Shi-young replied that now she didn't understand what kind of person he was. Chon Ji exploded with anger. And who was she? A psycho angel who waved a knife at their first meeting. Just then, they were interrupted from their hellish argument. In front of them stood those school kids, familiar faces. Chon Ji recognized their leader. Shi-young asked where they knew him from since he looked really angry. He remembered that night a few hours ago when he met the angel and got cursed. Chon Ji spoke with him, and the conversation was very unpleasant. Those memories triggered a strong aggression in Chon Ji. He even wanted to approach that jerk, when suddenly a notification popped up on his phone. He couldn't ignore it. He had to check the message. It was a guy, looking very sad, named Yoon Hyun-guk. After that, Jong Ji shifted his gaze back to those jerks. He heard that they were currently beating up Yoon Hyun-guk. The jerks had been looking for him for a long time and finally found him. The guy could barely breathe from the punches to his stomach, but they didn't care. He wasn't going to die from this. The boss ordered them to lift the guy. He decided to act like he always did this time. He pointed at the pretty girls and said that if he didn't want to show himself off, he should confess everything honestly. Yoon Hyun-guk couldn't hold back his tears anymore and promised anything. Then Lee Myung-hyun showed an article from the internet accusing him of being a thug from Il-chin's gang, and he wanted to know if Yoon Hyun-guk had done it. But the guy stayed silent, just choking on his tears. And Lee Myung-hyun took that as an answer. Then the gang burst into laughter since the post had only gotten 15 likes and 2 comments. It was just embarrassing. Lee Myung-hyun ordered Yoon Hyun-guk to delete that post immediately if he didn't want to die right then and there. The guy was ready to do anything. He quickly started typing something on his phone, and then the gang was sure that it was Yoon Hyun-guk who made the post. He admitted he deleted everything. The jerks made sure he didn't have a second account. After that, Lee Myung-hyun ordered them to strip that jerk. Yoon Hyun-guk started protesting. He had deleted everything, to which the boss told him not to worry, because he would quickly post and delete everything too. Lee Myung-hyun said to strip the poor guy naked and leave him alone. And when there were a few comments they would see, Yoon Hyun-guk begged, but they didn't listen. Just then, all those jerks were called over, and it was a huge bear with Jong Ji inside. The guys just stared at him in silence. Then one of them asked if this was Superbag's big fists. Jong Ji admitted he was incredibly happy to see them all and asked how they were doing. Lee Myung-hyun didn't understand how the bear knew them, but they all decided it was just another idiot. Jong Ji ignored that. He was on a mission. First, he asked the guy with glasses if he was Hyun-guk. The guy was surprised that someone knew him. The bear declared that he knew what Hyun-guk wanted without even listening to the wish. Jong Ji said they had met once before, but now things would be different. Jong Ji's knee glowed again. He felt the pain healing. But only he and Shi-young, who was watching from behind and smiling, could see it. Jong Ji declared that luck was on his side because he had the best healer with him. And his words made perfect sense. The gang stood in shock, just staring at this talking bear. Lee Myung-hyun asked Hyun-guk if he knew this crazy guy, but he was seeing him for the first time. Then one of them concluded that this was a psycho and he could handle him himself. He stepped up close to Jong Ji and started to act tough, asking why he was so crazy. But the bear ignored that and said the first hit was for the school kid. Sweat dripped down his face, revealing his nervousness. Jong Ji explained that he was wearing a soft suit, so he was giving him a chance to try once before they started. But then he changed his mind and allowed the school kid to hit him 10 times, to which the kid just kept talking tough. But eventually he swung, but Jong Ji dodged. After that, there was a very awkward pause. Jong Ji asked what that was. Then he decided to strike, and that little jerk flew back a few meters. He landed on the ground with a thud. After that, he got mad, saying the bear told him to hit first, jerk. But before he could complain, a fist landed squarely on his face. Then he got hit again. The school kid grabbed his cheeks and started crying. He called Jong Ji a coward, and honestly, the bear actually agreed. He acted really cowardly, staring at his boxing gloves. After that, he took them off and threw them away. He said that soft, padded gloves were just disrespectful to the opponent. Jong Ji grabbed the punk by the collar and apologized for his rudeness. The others watched in shock, but Lee Myung-hyun didn't react at all. The punk lay there, powerless, barely breathing. Jong Ji didn't understand what had happened. He had barely touched the poor guy. Everyone else looked to Lee Myung-hyun for support, but he remained unresponsive. Meanwhile, Jong Ji was already feeling bad that such a poor soul had fallen into his hands. But he told him not to worry, because he would play with the others just the same. He walked over to the gang, and the guys and girls scattered. But Lee Myung-hyun stood still. He wasn't afraid, or at least he wasn't showing it. Jong Ji asked if he was the leader. Lee Myung-hyun said something like that. Jong Ji immediately noticed that the guy kept his hands in his pockets the whole time. He was already familiar with that tactic. So he leaned in close, hovered over him, and ordered the punk to take his hands out. But Lee Myung-hyun didn't even breathe, trying not to reveal his anxiety. Jong Ji was impressed by his effort to look tough. He was like an actor. He got right up to Lee Myung-hyun and whispered in his ear, suggesting they make a bet. Jong Ji wagered his first 100 punches that the guy's hands were sweaty in his pockets. Lee Myung-hyun felt a chill run down his spine. He had been red. His hands were practically drowning in his pockets, and Jong Ji understood this perfectly. He knew the guy was trying to bluff. So the man promised Lee Myung-hyun he would beat him until he crapped himself. Jong Ji said that little punks who bullied the weak were not his level. Resisting made no sense. In the end, he would still crap himself in front of his friends today. And tomorrow, he would be given the nickname Crapper. And that meant his tough guy act, holding the whole school in check, would end right now. Lee Myung-hyun's heart felt like it was about to jump out. He wasn't breathing at all. He was so scared. Jong Ji asked if the guy was ready to say goodbye to his status. Suddenly, someone placed a hand on him. It was Sha Young. She asked him to stop. Jong Ji was furious. How could she interfere with his mission? She commanded the guy to leave and to do it quickly. There was no need to continue this disgraceful scene. And Lee Myung-hyun obeyed. He understood this was his chance to save his status. The guys couldn't believe their boss just decided to leave like that, but he yelled at them to shut up. The gang realized that Lee Myung-hyun was just scared. A smile appeared on Shi Young's face because at least he didn't say they would meet again. But Jong Ji wasn't going to let it go that easily. He grabbed Sha Young. Who did she think she was, interfering? These little punks owed him. But Sha Young said that wasn't a priority right now. She reminded him not to forget his main duties. Suddenly, Jong Ji turned to the side and stared at something. Hyun-guk was standing there, staring back. Well, it looked like a long conversation was ahead. Jong Ji had already stripped down. He was sweating in that suit, and Hyun-guk thanked him in a trembling voice. But Jong Ji replied that there was no need to thank him, because after this, Hyun-guk would get it good at school, even worse. The guy knew it too and was really scared. But right now, he was curious about how the man knew about him. Jong Ji asked if he wanted to get punched 10 times if he was so curious. Hyun-guk didn't understand anything. Then the man explained that it meant, if you don't want it, you better get lost. So he did just that, sadly heading home. Shi Young asked why he was so rude to the guy, but in Jong Ji's opinion, it was necessary. He knew guys like that well. Didn't she see that look? It was the look of a victim, someone used to being bullied. Jong Ji said that this loser would lose his whole life. He was sure that people like that never changed. If you ever accept the role of a victim, you'll stay that way forever. Shi Young asked how such a big guy like Jong Ji ended up being a loser. She knew exactly how to push his buttons. He exploded with aggression instantly and told her to shut up. He glared at her sternly. Usually, just one look was enough to make people run, but not for Shi Young. She held her ground and didn't even blink. This even amused Jong Ji. He calmed down, saying there was no point in arguing with a regular person against a wise angel. Then he noticed that he hadn't received a notification about completing the mission yet. Sha Young hinted that he hadn't completed it. But how? Jong Ji was sure he had done everything. Shi Young suggested that saving him from that gang wasn't the guy's true desire. Jong Ji listened to her and realized there was some truth to that. Then he called Hyun-guk, and the guy jumped, startled. He turned around in fear at the sound. Jong Ji asked directly what his desire was. What? Desire? Jong Ji was irritated by his stupidity and the fact that he was a victim. So he yelled and asked again what the guy wanted right now, and to make it quick. Hyun-guk asked if the man was talking to him. Jong Ji barely held back from yelling again and hitting the idiot. Shi Young was watching him closely to make sure he didn't do anything stupid. Hyun-guk understood everything silently. He was so embarrassed he didn't even know what to say. Then he blurted out that he wanted to become stronger. Jong Ji was just in shock. He couldn't believe this was actually happening. Then Shi Young's face broke into a smile, and she mockingly patted him on the shoulder. That desire hung over Jong Ji like a heavy stone. Suddenly, a new text appeared in the notification about the difficulty level. Then it added that this mission had a high difficulty level. Those red letters were practically screaming at Jong Ji. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to his apartment. Jong Ji collapsed onto his bed. He was so tired. But for Shi Young, it wasn't surprising at all since he had completed 10 tasks in 2 days without sleeping once. But for a while, everything would be calm if a tough task had come in. Yeah, that helped. Shi Young told him not to be upset, as there were no weak or strong people born that way. After that, she said she was tired and was going to take a shower. Jong Ji didn't react to this at all, just told her not to waste too much water. The bathroom door closed, and Jong Ji didn't react at all. Suddenly, it hit him. He burst into the bathroom and yelled at Shi Young. What the hell was she doing brushing her teeth here? Was she planning to spend the night? For Shi Young, it was so obvious. Of course she would stay overnight. Where else would she go? Jong Ji asked where her home was. But how could an angel have a home? He was just crushed. Didn't angels even have homes? Then he told Shi Young to just go back to heaven. But who even said that angels lived in heaven? Ignoramus. Jong Ji was trembling with rage. ordering her to leave while he was still being nice. Shi-young didn't understand what was wrong with him. She thought it was because she looked feminine and Jong-ji was embarrassed. But all angels actually had no gender. But that didn't surprise Jong-ji. He noticed the toothbrush she was holding. Who allowed Shi-young to open it? The guy was just furious. This was his new toothbrush, which he had bought last week. A brand new Swiss toothbrush. He had bought it for 25,300 on one to replace the old one that had already worn out. This toothbrush was endorsed by the Dental Association and effectively eliminated cavities, plaque, and tartar. But Shi-young didn't understand his mood at all. She simply admitted that she opened it because angels also had cavities. Amazing, right? Where could that come from? Jong-ji barely held himself together and asked Shi-young to disappear, even adding please. Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore, yelled at her, and kicked her out the door. Shi-young was just in shock. What had she done wrong? It was cool outside. She didn't leave. She called for Jong-ji to open the door. But he remained silent. She asked if he was really upset about the toothbrush. He stayed quiet. Then Shi-young called him Jong-ji and the door immediately opened. Jong-ji handed her the toothbrush and ordered her to get lost with the toothbrush. After that, he slammed the door loudly right in front of her face. Well, that made Shi-young feel better. She wouldn't get lost with a toothbrush in her mouth. However, it didn't upset her. It only made her smile at how heartless he was. Jong-ji finally exhaled and could really relax now. When suddenly, out of nowhere, Shi-young appeared, scaring him to death. She asked if Jong-ji was really going to kick her out. After all, angels had nowhere to go, and she didn't have any money either. But he didn't believe it. Such a big angel couldn't conjure up a little cash. And yes, he would kick her out. Shi-young finally realized that with such a terrible personality, Jong-ji was obviously cursed. Then she calmly declared that she would leave. Then a sly smile appeared on her face as she pointed somewhere to the side, more specifically at the table where Jong-ji's wallet lay. And he immediately flew towards Shi-young. The angel was very pleased with her plan, while Jong-ji thought he had lost his mind. He was in deep trouble. Shi-young grabbed the wallet, her face glowing with happiness. Then she looked Jong-ji in the eye and thanked him for the money. After that, Shi-young suddenly disappeared. Jong-ji tried to understand what had just happened. Then he exploded with anger. He had been played like a fool. He rushed out of the apartment, and Jong-ji ran after Shi-young and his wallet. He called her a thief, and she replied that she wasn't female. Then he called her a robber, but she wasn't male either. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to another neighborhood. There in his bed, Hyun-guk was sleeping. Don't ask why he sleeps in glasses. But in reality, Hyun-guk was troubled by insomnia. The image of those punks from school bullying him was stuck in his mind. The guys were picking on him again, but this time for having Jong-ji stand up for him. The boy swore he didn't know who was hiding behind the bear costume, but they didn't believe him. The boy needed to restore his status and confidence, so they were doing it by beating up Hyun-guk. The poor guy whimpered in pain. He couldn't move or even take a full breath. Myung-hyun said that until Hyun-guk brought that punk to him, he would keep getting it after every class. And that thought sent shivers down Hyun-guk's spine. He didn't understand what would happen the next day. He would obviously get beaten even worse. What to do? Then Hyun-guk pulled out a little note. There was a number written on it. Jong-ji had given him the number, saying it was a healer who could help him become strong. Shi-young didn't understand why he gave her number. But the answer was simple and logical. He didn't want to give his own number. Hyun-guk asked if they had their own gym. Boxing? Taekwondo? Jong-ji lied, saying something like that. She had the skills, and he had the fists. Shi-young silently supported the lie. Hyun-guk thought about this offer. Maybe it was time to take his life into his own hands. To change something? He pulled off the blanket. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to a train station. There was a gang of punks. Myung-hyun's partner was cleaning the wounds of that poor guy who got beaten up by Jong-ji. He had never seen someone get knocked out cold on the first hit. While those idiots debated whether soju could even disinfect wounds, Myung-hyun silently pondered what to do about this embarrassment. Suddenly, his partner turned to him. The guy wanted to know if the boss was really just going to throw in the towel and leave things as they were. But Myung-hyun was annoyed that he even had to ask that. Of course, the boss wouldn't just let it go like that. However, his partner didn't understand how they were going to find that bear. They hadn't even seen his face. But Myung-hyun wasn't worried about that because they had Hyun-guk. If they beat the glasses-wearing guy half to death, that bear would show up on his own. Still, the guy was a bit worried since that jerk was incredibly strong. But Myung-hyun assured him he had that covered. He called up some guy named Byung-guk Hyun. The man didn't greet Myung-hyun warmly. The boss told him they needed help. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the boxing gym. There sat Byung-guk-hyun. Myung-hyun told him about the bear suit, and it made the guy laugh heartily. The boss mentioned that the jerk was a good fighter. Byung-guk-hyun asked if the bear fought better than him. Myung-hyun smiled and replied that he wasn't sure about that. He knew he had to respond that way to pique Byung-guk-hyun's interest in helping. The smile didn't leave his face. Now he was really intrigued. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to another location, more specifically to a construction site. A sign hung that read "Danger Zone, no entry." But the person sitting right by the pipes didn't care. Sha-young was there, having bought a ton of food and eating it with great appetite, not understanding why the angel was so hungry. Suddenly, something caught her attention. She hadn't noticed how beautiful the view was due to her hunger. Sha-young was mesmerized by the beauty. Then something heavy suddenly landed on the pipe above her. She slowly crawled out of her hiding spot and turned around. And there she saw an incredibly beautiful angel with large white wings. Sha-young recognized her as Sunbae and was shocked by the encounter. Sunbae said she was just flying by and spotted Sha-young. It didn't sound very believable, but Sha-young chose to believe her. Meanwhile, Sunbae couldn't believe that Sha-young had stabbed him with a knife. She even demonstrated how she did it, as if she was proud. Sunbae. I didn't understand why she would do that, but the answer was obvious. So she wouldn't have to explain for long. Just one stab with a knife, and he'd understand right away. She interrupted Shi-young and asked if Sunbae had taught her that. The little angel was silent for a moment, caught off guard. Then Shi-young asked how Sunbae knew about it, after which she gently explained like a mother that the angel's strength lay elsewhere, and there was no need to step over herself. Those words touched Shi-young. She confessed that stabbing someone with a knife was terrifying and disgusting. She didn't want to do it at all. Sunbae reassured Shi-young and said she hoped she wouldn't lose her feelings like Z did. Then she asked how Jong-ji was doing, since he was the first person in 5 years in this country to receive a corrective curse. By the way, at that moment, he was punching the wall because Shi-young had stolen money from him. The angel confessed to Sunbae that she didn't know if he could be fixed since he was so angry and aggressive. That's why he was cursed. Shi-young promised she would do everything in her power. If she failed, Jong-ji would bring great evil into the world. She had to help him become better. Sunbae approved of her motivation. Shi-young had to try, even though it wouldn't be easy. But the little angel didn't understand why Sunbae thought that way. Suddenly, she received a notification. That meant she had to go. Z was messaging her. After that, Sunbae left, leaving Sha-young alone to ponder. Meanwhile, she stepped a little further away. Ez asked her about this demon, but Sunbae replied that she had figured everything out and there was nothing to worry about. Then she asked if he hadn't said anything to Shi-young. The answer shocked her. She even said that God was cruel. After a brief silence, Sunbae yelled at him and ordered him to stop teaching Shi-young to stab people. Meanwhile, morning arrived and the scene shifted to school. There, Hyun-guk was once again suffering at the hands of the gang. The poor guy still hadn't confessed who that jerk in the bear suit was. Hyun-guk kept repeating, swearing that he didn't know anything. Then Myung-hyun ordered them to beat the glasses-wearing guy until he confessed. Believe me, this went on for a long time. Meanwhile, evening fell. The gang stood by the arcade machines. The guys were discussing Hyun-guk, how he still hadn't spilled the beans, even though they had beaten him up pretty badly. Myung-hyun was eavesdropping, and it even seemed like they were admiring Hyun-guk. Suddenly, the boss once again failed to get that bear out of the machine. He got so mad that he started hitting the machine. In reality, Myung-hyun wasn't angry about that at all. He turned to the guys and suggested betting on how long that glasses-wearing guy, Hyun-guk, could hold out. Meanwhile, the poor guy was heading home. He pulled out a slip of paper with a number on it and stared at it for a long time. Hyun-guk thought about how he had almost revealed everything about Jong-ji. After that, he crumpled up that damn paper. He was about to throw it straight into the water, when suddenly someone called out to him, and Hyun-guk froze. He slowly turned around and saw Sha-young watching him. She told him he couldn't just throw away what he had been given with good intentions. Hyun-guk asked if he had seen her back then, and if this was her home. Why on earth did he think this was home? Then Shi-young quickly hopped down to Hyun-guk. She asked if the guy had been beaten up again, and he admitted it. Then Shi-young asked why Hyun-guk hadn't called. He wanted to get stronger. Suddenly, he stuttered and confessed that he was just scared of that man. Honestly, that made Sha-young laugh, but she understood Hyun-guk. Then she asked him to be honest. Hyun-guk froze at such a sudden change in mood. Shi-young urged him to admit whether he believed in himself. Hyun-guk fell silent again. Then Shi-young told him that the man in the bear suit said Hyun-guk had the look of a victim, and that people like him would lose their whole lives. Shi-young asked if he was right. A silence fell between them. Suddenly, heavy footsteps were heard nearby. It was that jerk who got beaten up by Chon Ji. He was talking to Myung-hyun and said the boss was right. There was value in surveillance. Too bad it wasn't that freaking bear. But meeting the girl who was with him wasn't too bad either. Myung-hyun ordered to grab her, and that idiot didn't need to be told twice. He quickly approached the two of them. Hyunguk turned pale when he saw his tormentor. The jerk pretended to feel sorry for Hyunguk. That jerk pretended to genuinely feel sorry for Hyunguk. Then with a sly grin, he asked if Hyunguk had suffered much today. He immediately lunged at Hyunguk and kicked him. The poor guy gasped for air, tears streaming down his face. He said it was always a thrill to hit such an idiot. Then his gaze shifted to Shi-young. He turned to her, called her little one, and asked if she remembered him. For a moment, Shi-young just stared at him in silence. Then she simply replied that she didn't remember him at all. That hit him hard. How could she not remember him? He suddenly grabbed her and pulled her closer, then asked where the bear was. Shi-young didn't even blink. She was completely indifferent. She quickly shoved her hand into her pocket. When suddenly it dawned on her, she had thrown away the knife while talking to Sunba-a. But Shi-young wasn't worried. She could use telekinesis. When suddenly, that jerk grabbed her tighter. She tried to move her hand, but it just wouldn't cooperate. Shi-young started to panic a little. She remembered what she had been taught. Guardian angels, unlike higher angels, were limited in their powers on Earth and couldn't erase memories if there were other witnesses around. Invisible abilities like telekinesis, flight, and invisibility were immediately blocked. Shi-young had happily noted all these rules down herself. They were warned to be careful on Earth because, far from their charge, guardian angels became weaker. So they were interconnected with their person. Then Shi-young decided to play dumb and said she had no idea what bear he was talking about. She wanted to say that bears should be looked for at the zoo, but she didn't get to finish her sentence because that jerk slapped her hard. Shi-young nearly fell over. She winced in pain, having never felt anything like it before. Then that jerk spoke to Hyunguk. He said there was nothing more for him to do here. And it wasn't a request, it was a threat. Hyunguk quickly glanced at Shi-young. She was silent, but it seemed he found his answer in her eyes. After that, Hyunguk quickly gathered his things and left. He was trembling as he left Shi-young alone. When suddenly, she told him that the guy still didn't know himself. That made Hyunguk freeze in place. She knew he wanted to throw away the paper with the number. So was he really planning to endure everything alone? Shi-young said that was courage. And that jerk just laughed, saying Hyunguk didn't have any, but he had 5 seconds to get out fast. Then he started counting down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and his expression changed, wondering why Hyunguk wasn't running. After that, there was a long pause. Everyone was silent. Then Hyunguk spoke to Shi-young. He apologized. After that, he bolted. Shi-young called him a victim. Then that jerk suddenly yanked her hair. He told Shi-young not to expect mercy just because she was a girl. Then he ordered her to tell him where the bear was. But before he could finish, she jabbed him with her hand. It hurt him and he spat out in surprise. Then he screamed like a little kid. The Martial Art Angel's Path, Chapter 18. The Longinus Kick. To finish the Guardian Angel's martial arts course, she also needed to... She didn't get to finish before the jerk interrupted her. Meanwhile, heavy footsteps were heard nearby. Shi-young caught a glimpse out of the corner of her eye that the rest of the gang was approaching. And Myung-hyun had a smug smile on his face. He immediately asked Shi-young aggressively where the bear was. Honestly, she found it funny. Did they really think she would sell out the person she was supposed to protect as a guardian angel? No way. Shi-young said she had no idea what bear they were talking about. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to another part of the city. There, Chon Ji was putting up flyers and barely moving. When Shi-young wasn't around, his legs hurt like crazy. Oddly enough, his stomach felt fine. Then Chon Ji remembered how he had fought that idiot. And it made him feel good inside. At least he had some fun. Then he spotted a little shop with juicy chicken. Chon Ji remembered how he had eaten it at home. He loved that chicken so much. Chon Ji approached the vendor and asked for his usual, 1 serving of chicken and a salad. But then Chon Ji blushed and asked for 2 chickens instead. So he was heading home, scrolling through his phone and limping. He called Shi-young, but to his surprise, she didn't answer. Chon Ji was getting frustrated. It annoyed him that Shi-young had disappeared. Meanwhile, the angel's phone was completely smashed, but still vibrating. However, she couldn't answer. She was barely conscious. The phone vibrated, so Myung-hyun picked it up. Chon Ji heard a male voice and thought he had dialed the wrong number. He hung up immediately. Myung-hyun stared at the phone in shock. After that, he went to wake up Shi-young. He handed her the phone and ordered her to call her idiot bear. Shi-young took it and said she finally understood what this feeling was. It was called pain. Myung-hyun was in shock. Was she already delirious? Meanwhile, Shi Young remembered something. When she had met someone very big, she had asked to meet him, not expecting him to shine so brightly. It was all because she had met the very god. Sha Young fell to her knees, and the god looked at her desires as she went through her angel training. Honestly, even he was surprised by her wish, because Sha Young wanted to become human. It even made him laugh. He wanted to know why. Quite a bold wish for a young angel. But Sha Young's answer was simple. Here, she couldn't feel anything, and she wanted to feel the taste, the smell, and even pain. A smile froze on her face as she said it was cool. After all, Shi Young was right. Back when Zhongji had slammed the door on her fingers, she hadn't felt anything, even though blood had flowed. But now, with Zhongji nearby, Shi Young felt pain. Then she started begging Myung-hyun to hit her again. She really wanted it. Everyone just froze in shock at what they heard. Everyone just froze in shock at what they heard. Then Myung-hyun realized she was just starting to lose it, although they had hit her pretty hard. Suddenly, Sha Young lunged at him, begging him to hit her again and again. Myung-hyun called her crazy and slapped her, asking once more where the hell the bear was. Shi Young winced in pain and froze like that, when suddenly her face lit up with happiness. While Myung-hyun was dealing with her, the gang was running into trouble, because the police were approaching them. Some guy had complained about the hooligans. Sha Young seized the moment and quickly ran away, knowing that the police would only bring trouble. The rest of the gang was also getting ready to flee. Myung-hyun shouted after her that they would definitely meet again. After that, Shi Young felt a surge of strength and jumped high. Then she bounced up towards her home. She reached the spot where she had left her knife and quickly retrieved it with telekinesis. Just as quickly, she grabbed it right out of the air. Then she landed on the ground. That's when Shi Young realized no one was around. When suddenly it felt like something was sucking her in, she jumped sharply off the ground and reached for the heavens, hoping that the god was finally watching. Back when she was with the god, he told her that if Shi Young truly wanted to feel everything, he had a wonderful place for that. Shi Young could no longer hold back. She wanted to know where she needed to go. And then the god sent her into the human world to become a guardian angel. That way, she could feel everything that people felt, even the toothache from cavities. Shi Young wanted the god to see how she felt everything, and it was simply incredible. She hadn't been this happy in a long time. Meanwhile, Zhongji's knees suddenly began to heal, and then he realized who was knocking at the door. The first question was, what happened to her face? Zhongji couldn't believe that angels could get hurt, but he warned Shi Young not to even think about playing the pity card. He wouldn't let her stay the night, but she didn't care about that. Still, Zhongji wanted to know what happened. Shi Young explained that she just wanted to keep those wounds as a memory. Then her attention shifted to what Zhongji was holding. She casually asked if that was the famous chicken. Zhongji couldn't believe she actually thought he was that much of an idiot. Her mouth was literally watering. Though he wouldn't admit it, Zhongji wasn't a monster. So the whole chicken he bought disappeared very quickly. Shi Young devoured it in just a few seconds. Zhongji couldn't understand how she managed to eat it all. Sha Young said the bread was tasty too, but the chicken, words couldn't describe it. Zhongji wanted to figure it out. Was there really no food in heaven? But it turned out they never ate or even slept there. She added that they didn't even poop. Zhongji said she could skip the last part. After that, he stood up to clean, shocked that he had ordered 2 servings but barely ate anything. He asked if a glutton spirit had possessed her. Then Sha Young corrected him, saying that such spirits didn't exist. It annoyed her. Suddenly, the angel remembered something she wanted to share. Shi Young had met Hyun-guk, and she had to tell him about it. She said Zhongji was right. The poor guy got even more. But the boy said Hyun-guk would be like that for life. Then Shi Young asked why he kept repeating that. Zhongji started to justify himself, but the angel interrupted him, asking if Hyun-guk couldn't be fixed. That question caught him off guard. Suddenly, some flashbacks surfaced in his memory. When at the bar, a group of acquaintances discussed how someone like Zhongji couldn't be fixed. More specifically, a jerk like Zhongji. Shi Young said the man had a lot to work on within himself, but Hyun-guk was a different story. Weakness wasn't a flaw that needed fixing. And those who needed to change were people like Zhongji in the past, who were obsessed with fighting just because they had strength, or the punks who bullied the weak. Zhongji had matured, but he hadn't achieved anything. Did he really want to give up on that boy's future too? Or did he want to assert himself at his expense? Shi Young hit a nerve, and the man started shouting. She told him to just go to Hyun-guk and help, and Zhongji was still waiting for a call from him. Shi Young repeated once more that he could just go and help on his own. She saw that it wasn't getting through to Chon Ji. Then she suggested trying again what hell tasted like. Chon Ji said not to even mention hell. He'd get such a nervous tick. When suddenly, his phone rang. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Something was definitely up. For some reason, Hyun-guk's profile was flashing red. Panic and anxiety froze on Shi-young's face. She asked again if it was really flashing red. That was a very bad sign. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Hyun-guk, where the guys were bothering him again. This time they had cornered him on the roof of a building. Hyun-guk was very scared. Even though they hadn't climbed that high, Shi-young explained to Chon Ji that red was a warning, a sign of death, and that meant Hyun-guk was in serious danger. It all started when Myung-hyun punched the guy in the face. He said Hyun-guk wouldn't escape them, even if he tried to run away like this time. Plus, the gang decided that it was Hyun-guk who had called the cops, even though they had been so nice to him. But the boys swore it definitely wasn't him this time. But the guys didn't care. The jokes were over. He advised Hyun-guk to clench his teeth or he'd bite his tongue off. After that, the jerk swung a stick at him. Blood splattered everywhere. The sound was like something breaking. Hyun-guk immediately fell and passed out, while the punks took turns hitting him. Everyone wanted a shot. He told that idiot that Hyun-guk could die if they kept hitting him in the head. But he didn't care. He thought he was untouchable. The boys suggested hitting him in the soft spots to prolong the fun. Meanwhile, enough time had passed for the punks to get their kicks. The others had already started filming everything on their phones and even thought about sending the video to Hyun-guk's parents. Then Myung-hyun descended to the poor guy. He told Hyun-guk that these idiots had even bet on how soon he would crack. So now he wouldn't get off easy. He had to think carefully. Then Hyun-guk gathered all his strength and asked what they were planning to do with him. To which Myung-hyun replied that he was the only one asking questions right now. Glasses lay on the floor, the only thing that survived such a beating. There wasn't a single unbruised spot on Hyun-guk. He didn't even have the strength to cry anymore. Hyun-guk remembered Shi-young's question about whether he believed in himself, and then her story about how he was a victim, and that man thought so too. People like Hyun-guk would lose their whole lives. Those words echoed in his head. He saw himself as just a loser, especially after he had given up his number. But in reality, they didn't even know what to do next with that number. The guys were discussing whether Bio-guk-hyun or that dude would be strong enough. After that, the guys left the school building. But then Chon Ji showed up. Here we go again with this stupid Ilson school. He just couldn't deal with it. Meanwhile, Hyun-guk put his glasses back on. A terrible idea struck him. He decided to take revenge with his own death. After all, if Hyun-guk died, they wouldn't just get away with it. They wouldn't escape punishment. He approached the edge of the roof. The leaves were swaying and the wind had picked up fiercely. Hyun-guk stood at the edge looking down. The height scared him. In reality, he was a total coward. But was ending his life like this a sign of weakness? Or on the contrary, a great strength? Hyun-guk motivated himself, pushing himself forward. Just close your eyes and jump. And just as he seemed ready, a voice called out to him. The surprise sent a jolt through his body. Hyun-guk caught a glimpse of a man behind him out of the corner of his eye. An awkward silence fell between them. Who would have thought that getting caught like this would make you feel ashamed? Chon Ji asked if it was a sign for Hyun-guk that after such a stunt, he was headed straight to hell. But the guy stayed silent. It seemed he wasn't even thinking about it. Chon Ji added that hell was really bad. He mentioned he knew this firsthand because he had been there. Hyun-guk didn't know why, but for some reason he believed him. Meanwhile, the guys sat together at the edge of the roof. Hyun-guk stopped trying to jump down, but now he was curious about how Chon Ji knew he was there. In fact, the man didn't even know how to explain it. He just got a notification. His phone was buzzing like crazy. Chon Ji panicked and asked how to find Hyun-guk. It turned out Sha-young knew. If you clicked on the photo, it would show the location. He clicked, and it immediately showed a map with a pin, Ilshin School. Let's just say Chon Ji wasn't thrilled about going back to that school. So he just told Hyun-guk to forget about it since explaining would take too long, and he was too lazy. Chon Ji decided to quickly change the subject and asked if the student really wanted to die. Poor Hyun-guk felt his hands tremble at the memories. But honestly, he didn't even know the answer to that question himself. Then Chon Ji called him a wuss. He completely missed that Shi-young had appeared and smacked this idiot on the head. Meanwhile, Hyun-guk was lost in thought about Chon Ji's words. And while they were sorting things out, the guy admitted he really was a loser. They didn't expect to hear that and forgot about their argument. After that, Hyun-guk started to fight back and confessed that he had given those jerks the note Shi-young had given him. It seemed Chon Ji wasn't even surprised by that, and Hyun-guk continued to regret it. He said how much it hurt when they beat him up. But when the jerks were done, he felt disgusted with himself. Hyungkook couldn't take it anymore. Before, they only beat him, and he was the only one who had to endure it. He remembered how those jerks first met Sha-young, and what they did to her, how she suffered. Hyungkook just hated himself at the thought of it happening again. He had run away and done nothing, and now he was giving away the note with the number. Hyungkook screamed about how much he hated himself, and that someone like him would be better off. He didn't get to finish because Jong-ji kicked him mid-sentence. Sha-young was in shock. What was this idiot thinking? But Jong-ji just couldn't stand the whining. It was such a stupid reason to want to die. If Hyungkook didn't like himself, he needed to change. There were no weak people born that way, and no one was impossible to change. Then Jong-ji told the loser that he would grant his wish. Even Sha-young was surprised. But it was a pleasant surprise. Jong-ji knew that Hyungkook had only been taking and didn't even know it could be different. He had never fought back in his life, never beaten anyone. Sha-young's heart raced. She had been waiting for Jong-ji to say this. He said he would show Hyungkook. Sha-young was mentally praising Jong-ji for teaching Hyungkook to stand up against injustice, when suddenly this idiot said he would show him how fun it was to beat people up. Sha-young was ready to strangle this idiot. What? Meanwhile, morning arrived. The whole crew gathered on the bridge. Hyungkook was talking to his mom, who was yelling at him, not understanding why he wanted to study. Then she added that she didn't care, but he better clean the house. She also asked him not to get into trouble and that she was busy, so they would talk tomorrow. Before Hyungkook could say anything, the conversation ended. They were eavesdropping and whispering. Now it made sense why Hyungkook walked around with such a painted face, and his parents did nothing about it. After that, the boy announced that he was allowed to come home late this time. Jong-ji ordered him to run. But Hyungkook didn't understand. Run where? Jong-ji repeated it, but more sternly. He ordered him to run 3 laps along the waterfront, and Hyungkook obeyed. The boy had no experience with this, but he just had to. He wasn't used to not listening to those stronger than him. Jong-ji commented that the kid had no physical training at all, and this was just the first lap. When suddenly, Sha-young asked what Jong-ji was thinking. From the man's reaction, she started to get angry. He was planning to teach Hyungkook to fight, right? But Jong-ji got mad. The kid wanted this, to become strong. Then Sha-young explained what the man was really trying to do. He wanted to defeat violence with violence. The angel wasn't sure that was the right way. Jong-ji's expression changed for a second, as if he understood the true path. But then he laughed, reminding her of an angel he knew who could stab someone with a knife. Sha-young said that was just hopeless. Jong-ji admitted he doubted Hyungkook could become stronger. It was always hard. Few could casually beat people up like that, and Hyungkook was just a rag. Among those who inflicted pain on others, he hurt himself first. It didn't matter how much he bulked up from working out. If Hyungkook found it hard to hit someone with full force, the problem was swinging fists in training, and hitting a living person was a whole different thing. And in front of those bullies, he would remain defenseless, like standing in front of a brick wall. Then Sha-young asked what Hyungkook was doing in that case. Jong-ji didn't understand the question. The answer was obvious. He was running. How that idiot annoyed her. She asked again why the boy was running. When suddenly, Jong-ji realized something, and his thoughts changed. He remembered what he and the crew had said at the table, that he was impossible to change. Jong-ji suddenly looked at Hyungkook in a new light, and he said maybe he was wrong. Sha-young looked at him as if trying to understand what had changed his mind so much. When suddenly her phone vibrated, Jong-ji asked if they were calling Sha-young. She didn't know, but she wasn't scared and picked up the receiver. It was Lee Myung-hyun on the line, and he told Sha-young that they really wanted to befriend her bear friend. And he asked if the angel would introduce them. When suddenly, Jong-ji couldn't stand listening to that jerk anymore and snatched the phone. He greeted Myung-hyun and asked if he wanted to befriend him. Then he asked again where would be the best place to befriend. The crew was at the nearest construction site, and they invited Jong-ji. He wasn't scared at all. They would see each other soon. After that, he tossed the phone back to Sha-young. Jong-ji ordered Hyungkook to keep going while they stepped aside for a bit. He barely heard it through his heavy gasping and was about to say he couldn't run anymore. But when Hyungkook saw Jong-ji's expression, he immediately took back his words. He understood everything and would keep running. Then Sha-young asked him what he was going to do. Jong-ji briefly told the angel not to stop him this time. He was going to knock all the crap out of those jerks. Sha-young stared at Jong-ji for a long time, and after a few seconds of silence, she remembered how much Hyungkook had cried. And then Sha-young told Jong-ji to do what he thought was right. He was surprised because he expected to hear condemnation from the angel. She promised she wouldn't interfere. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the construction site. There was Jong Ji. He put on the bear suit again and told the jerks they had crossed the line. Myung-hyun replied that the school boundaries were just too tight. From that cheeky response, Jong Ji realized the gang actually wanted to get their butts kicked. Myung-hyun told him to take off the suit. It would be awkward to fight in it. To which Jong Ji replied that he wasn't sure he could keep up with the level. Meanwhile, Shi-young was watching all of this, when suddenly something very heavy and large passed behind her. When she turned to look, Shi-young panicked. It was Byogun-hyun. He grabbed the head of Jong Ji's suit and asked if his level was good enough. He quickly dodged, sensing danger, but Jong Ji didn't manage to dodge the punch to the stomach that came out of nowhere. Byogun-hyun was getting a kick out of this. He immediately threw another punch, making the bear's head spin. But Jong Ji braced himself with his foot and stopped. Byogun-hyun moved closer to the bear and asked how his level was. Was it enough to take off the suit? But Jong Ji stayed silent and thought, who was this guy? His punches could be felt even through the suit, and his fists were not those of an ordinary person. Byogun-hyun told Jong Ji again to take off the suit and not to be difficult. The bear asked if the opponent had heard of Mazinger Z, but that idiot didn't know about the manga character, the giant robot that launched fist rockets at enemies. And then Jong Ji threw his boxing glove at Byogun-hyun, but the opponent easily deflected it. However, it was just a distraction. Jong Ji quickly regrouped. Byogun-hyun was thrown off, and Jong Ji reminded him with his actions that he would take off the suit if the opponent could keep up. After that punch, Byogun-hyun just collapsed to the ground with a crunch. Was that his back? Then he asked the rest who else wanted to test his level. After that, the gang, like the last bunch of cowards, started to run away. But Myung-hyun stood still, even though he was already sweating profusely. Then Jong Ji turned to him and called him a weakling. That was the last straw. Myung-hyun grimaced in fear. After that, he ran away as fast as his gang. Just look at that twisted face. It could be framed. But Myung-hyun didn't manage to escape before Jong Ji grabbed him by the neck. The boy started screaming, nearly crying, and the bear asked why he wasn't playing the tough guy anymore. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Hyun-guk. And no, it wasn't a sudden rain. It was all the sweat pouring off him. He could barely breathe. When suddenly shadows appeared above him, Hyun-guk tensed up. But it turned out to be just Jong Ji and Shi-young. They asked if the student was done. And without waiting for an answer, they threw him a phone. Hyun-guk asked what that was. It was the final weapon. On the phone was a video of Myung-hyun showing off his wet underwear and saying he had peed himself. Jong Ji even prompted him. Myung-hyun added that he peed himself because the super bear boxer taught him a lesson. He asked why the student needed to be taught a lesson, and Myung-hyun replied, sobbing, that he had bullied his friends. Jong Ji asked how he had bullied others. He replied that he hit people for fun and took their money. Then the bear grabbed Myung-hyun by the face and said that the kid he had tormented wanted to end his life and asked if he had anything to say. After that, the former gang leader fell to his knees and apologized, promising never to bully anyone again. Jong Ji promised that if it happened again, Myung-hyun wouldn't get off so easily. He then ordered the kid to keep going. The student said he wouldn't bother drunk passers-by anymore, and he wouldn't humiliate disabled people. He also promised not to litter the streets with cigarette butts. After that, Jong Ji told Myung-hyun to come over. He wanted to take a picture together. The student was reluctant but approached anyway. Then Jong Ji said that he was taking a picture with Myung-hyun, the idol of all the kids, and yet he had such a grumpy face. He ordered the student to smile, and Myung-hyun did, though his laughter was more frightening than joyful. Hyun-guk watched all this unfold and couldn't believe his eyes. Then he looked at Jong Ji, who was now scaring him quite a bit. Jong Ji was feeling proud of himself. He said he would send the video to Hyun-guk, and if Myung-hyun bothered him again, it would go viral. Shi-young let out a sigh of relief. Then Hyun-guk stood up, bowed, and thanked him. Jong Ji asked if the kid still wanted to be strong. The student was taken aback by the question. Jong Ji asked if his desire had changed. After all, he had gotten his revenge, and those guys wouldn't dare touch Hyun-guk again. So did he still want to be strong? The student had just run a little and what? Almost died? But Jong Ji promised that it would only get harder from here. That was the only way to become strong. Meanwhile, Jong Ji and Shi-young were walking back together. They both fell silent. It was really awkward. Suddenly, Jong Ji said that Shi-young had kept her cool pretty well. The angel replied that the video with the threats was a terrible and very wrong way to handle things, and she was really angry. But since she promised to stay quiet, she had to stick to it. Jong Ji laughed, saying that even a noble angel was being harassed by human trash. Shi-young quickly changed the subject, so they had saved Hyun-guk from his tormentors. But how was Jong Ji going to fulfill his wish? They only had 5 days left to complete the task. He looked at her in shock. Then he asked, since when did tasks have deadlines? It turned out it had always been that way. Otherwise, people could slack off and drag their feet to avoid doing the task. For tough tasks, they were given exactly a week, and now there were only 5 days left. Chon Ji panicked. What would happen if he didn't complete it? Young replied that nothing special would happen, just an hour in hell. Honestly, that made Chon Ji a little freaked out. An hour? A whole hour? He completely lost it, grabbed Young and started yelling at her. Why hadn't she told him about this earlier? The angel thought she had mentioned it, but apparently she had a bit of a memory lapse. Chon Ji said it was impossible to become strong in a week. Young replied that God only gave people challenges they could handle. But that didn't make him feel any better. No, anything but hell. A whole hour? Chon Ji wouldn't last a second in there. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Hyun-guk's apartment. He was sitting at the table watching the video. It stirred up some strange feelings in him. Lee Myung-hyun, so brave and fierce, yet so humiliated. It brought a smile to his face. After all, that kind of worthless trash had been keeping him from living. Hyun-guk logged into social media. He was about to post the video. Now it was Lee Myung-hyun's turn to suffer. He was practically drooling. Hyun-guk hovered his finger over the send button. He hesitated as if something was holding him back. His finger trembled, and suddenly those memories flooded his mind. Young's words about how Hyun-guk still didn't know himself well. She had said that the kid was trying to get rid of the note, trying to endure everything on his own. But that was what they called courage. No, he couldn't. Hyun-guk just threw his phone down. What a load of crap. Did Young really think he had the courage? Meanwhile, the scene shifted back to school. Morning had arrived. The gang was gathered, but they stood silently, just staring at each other. It was super awkward. No one wanted to be the first to speak. Then Myung-hyun showed up and called them all cowardly losers. Why had they all run away back then? Those losers had completely lost their minds. But it was okay, they would pay for it later. But the gang remained silent. They said nothing. Then Myung-hyun continued with his threats, saying they would all suffer until morning. The guys still stayed quiet, as if ignoring their boss. Myung-hyun turned to them and asked what was going on. They stayed silent, and the boss raised his voice. He said he was really angry about their escape. While his idiot duck lay unconscious, his gang had left him alone with that loser. Did they even know what Myung-hyun had to go through? They had wasted all the money and couldn't even do their job properly. And Myung-hyun called the duck stupid. He wasn't a pro at all. Suddenly, the duck that the student had called stupid appeared behind him and called for Myung-hyun. Byung-guk-hyun asked him to repeat what he had said. Myung-hyun started stuttering, barely able to say the duck's name. Meanwhile, the gang quickly fled. Byung-guk-hyun asked if he had just been called a stupid duck. And even though Myung-hyun tried to convince him that wasn't what he meant, it was too late. Byung-guk-hyun was ready to show him just how unprofessional he was. Well, it didn't actually take long. Myung-hyun lay beaten on the floor, drained of energy. He could barely hold back his tears. Suddenly, someone else showed up on the school roof. Myung-hyun didn't expect this encounter at all. It was Hyun-guk. He asked boldly if the nerd had come to laugh at him too. But Hyun-guk stayed silent and just showed him the video. It seemed Myung-hyun had never seen it from the outside. He panicked hard, losing his ability to speak. Then Hyun-guk paused the video. After that, he ordered him to apologize. He spoke very briefly but confidently. Myung-hyun was in shock. Hyun-guk repeated it. It wasn't hard for him, but his tone was very serious. Myung-hyun didn't understand such a request at all. Then he just laughed and told him to get lost with those demands. Hyun-guk felt braver just because he had evidence. He was inspired by the example of the crazy bear and suddenly found his courage. He ignored all of Myung-hyun's provocations and ordered him to apologize again. And then the student realized he no longer had any influence and that Hyun-guk wasn't afraid of him anymore. A silence fell. The former school bully understood he needed to apologize. He clenched his teeth, just couldn't bring himself to say it. After that, Myung-hyun exploded and apologized. He said he was done with this and wouldn't hurt anyone anymore. But that wasn't enough for Hyun-guk. He asked if Myung-hyun understood what his actions had led to. He admitted that he wanted to die because of that loser. After that, Hyun-guk handed his phone to Myung-hyun. He didn't understand anything. The nerd asked him to delete the video himself. Myung-hyun was either in shock or just dumb because he didn't do anything. Then Hyun-guk explained that he would have threatened him with it if he hadn't found courage thanks to the bear, just like Myung-hyun had said. He didn't understand what those brave statements from the nerd were about. Hyun-guk promised he would get stronger. And for some reason, those words made Myung-hyun feel a little scared. Hyun-guk thought about Young's words. that people like him had been losers their whole lives. He told Myung-hyun that now he would try to win. The former school bully stared at him in shock. Then he just burst out laughing. What did the nerd say? Stronger? Myung-hyun just mocked his intentions. Stronger? Where did he even get that crazy idea? But Hyun-guk was no longer affected by it. He calmly told him to stop laughing. Suddenly, Myung-hyun hit him. Hyun-guk fell back immediately. Myung-hyun ordered the nerd to shut up, and Hyun-guk was supposed to stop laughing. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to a construction site. Sha-young was there, eating a bun with great appetite. Sunbae was nearby. The angel confessed that she hadn't told Jong-ji about the mission deadlines, and he got mad, kicked her out, and locked himself at home. Can you believe it? In the middle of the night, total trash. Jong-ji is trash. Sunbae said that Shi-young probably annoyed him, but she still called Jong-ji trash. But in reality, the poor guy was sitting at home, trembling in fear of spending a whole hour in hell. He just couldn't figure out how he would make that idiot strong in 3 days. Jong-ji decided that hellish training was about to begin, but he couldn't do it alone. Then he thought about suggesting to the idiot to go to hell together. But before Jong-ji could finish, he received a message. Then a few more. His phone was blowing up. Shi-young told Sunbae that Jong-ji would probably have to spend time in hell, but Sunbae said that it wasn't known yet. Meanwhile, the scene shifted back to school. Myung-hyun was about to leave. Suddenly, Hyun-guk asked if he wouldn't hit anyone anymore. The student was so irritated. Hyun-guk stood silently in front of him. His expression had changed. He was no longer a victim. On the contrary, Hyun-guk now knew himself, and he believed in himself. He told Myung-hyun that he could endure more. Sunbae told Shi-young that sometimes just a little was enough. Jong-ji was staring at his phone, unable to believe his eyes, because the phone was saying that the mission was accomplished. Sunbae meant that to fulfill a person's wish, sometimes just a little was needed. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Jong-ji's apartment. He was standing by the door, listening to someone else's heavy breathing. In front of him stood a sweaty Hyun-guk. Jong-ji couldn't understand how the student had found out about this place. It turned out the angel had spilled the beans. Jong-ji could barely contain his aggression. How dare that little brat? Hyun-guk immediately apologized. That snapped the man out of his thoughts of revenge. He said that thanks to Jong-ji, Myung-hyun had finally backed off from him. Suddenly, the guy confessed that he had no idea why his wish had come true out of the blue. But Hyun-guk also had to understand that Jong-ji didn't know if Myung-hyun would show up in the 2nd or 3rd class. The nerd said he understood that too, but it only made Jong-ji laugh. Hyun-guk realized he had to stand up for his desire and reminded him that he had asked him last time if he still wanted to be strong. Jong-ji perked up. Hyun-guk shouted that he really wanted to. His face was beaming with confidence. And Jong-ji told him that he had taken down that big duck with one punch. The guy didn't want to enjoy beating people up, but he wanted to be strong just like Jong-ji. Plus, he didn't want to inflict pain on himself just because someone had beaten him. Hyun-guk wanted him to be able to love himself. Jong-ji just stared at him in silence, and Hyun-guk froze, not understanding what other grand speech he needed to give. Was that not enough? Suddenly, Jong-ji slammed the door right in Hyun-guk's face. The guy opened his mouth in shock. Jong-ji just didn't understand what he had just heard. His mission was over, so what was he supposed to do now? Hyun-guk called out to him again, but Jong-ji got angry and yelled for him to go away. They had nothing to talk about. The student begged for just a minute. He really wanted to learn from Jong-ji. He swore he could run miles, but he was no longer being listened to. Jong-ji turned on a game and put on his headphones, while Hyun-guk pounded on the door as if it were his last chance for survival. The guy kept calling for Jong-ji, but he ignored Hyun-guk and focused on the game. An hour passed and it got quiet outside the door. Then Sha-young appeared, yelling at that idiot Jong-ji. How could he act like that? Just 2 days ago, this kid was ready to die. Isn't it amazing that he managed to fulfill his own wish? But for Jong-ji, there was nothing amazing about it. The root cause was his weak character. Sha-young said he was just trash. Did he have no feelings at all? Jong-ji asked how he was supposed to feel, still not tearing himself away from the game. Shi-young said that if Hyun-guk died, he would go to hell. But Jong-ji interrupted her, saying it was time for him to get to work. The angel ordered him to promise he would help Hyun-guk, since he himself had said that after the mission, he had nothing to do. Jong-ji simply replied that she was getting on his nerves, and Sha-young couldn't understand when this idiot would grow up. Suddenly, her gaze fixed on something. She stared intently at apartment 304, Jong-ji's place, after which she nervously swallowed. Then she abruptly dashed inside and said she wouldn't apologize. She was lying to herself, saying she was snooping out of concern. She was just a guardian angel, gathering information about the person she was supposed to protect. Meanwhile, Ji was also thinking about Young as he headed to work. What was wrong with her? Suddenly, his knees started shaking violently and ached with pain. It hit him like a ton of bricks. Ji had completely forgotten about that feeling. If only he hadn't fought with her damn legs. Meanwhile, Young found a photo album filled with stickers. The angel was surprised herself, knowing that such things had gone out of style in the human world a long time ago. She opened the first page, and shock froze on her face. What? Ji had a girlfriend? It seemed that even during a tough time, Ji had been too busy to fight because he had a girlfriend. Young stared at her for a long time and concluded that she was pretty. Meanwhile, several hours passed. Ji still hadn't put up all the flyers. He was struggling to stick them to the wall and was actually leaning against it to take a breather. Ji cursed. He should have just brought that damn angel with him. Suddenly, he saw something that nearly made his jaw drop. He saw Hyunguk running. It was hard to even call it running since the guy looked like he was about to cough up a lung. But that didn't make Ji any less surprised. A look of something resembling satisfaction even appeared on his dull face. But then he immediately dismissed Hyunguk. Did this idiot really think just running was enough? Suddenly, Ji's legs began to heal. Young caught him red-handed. She saw his joyful face. Ji started shouting and denying it, but he was panicking. Young said he was being very proud. Meanwhile, while they were bickering like cats and dogs, someone was watching them. They didn't notice the intense spying at all. The man recognized Ji, the one who had disrespected God, and God had taken pity on him and placed a curse of correction upon him. An angel with very large, beautiful wings was watching them. The man said that despite everything, he couldn't just watch this without paying attention to Ji's actions. It was the highest angel, Sunbai Z. His trait was extraordinary loyalty. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Ji's apartment, where the angel was hanging in the doorway and asked if he had eaten chicken. Ji asked if he was supposed to eat it every day. Was he a millionaire? Young couldn't believe chicken was that expensive. He looked at his phone where a message said the promotion for putting up flyers had ended the day before. Young peeked and realized that this idiot had been fired, even though he argued otherwise. Then the angel suggested Ji find a steady job. If she was around, his legs didn't hurt, but how long did he plan to live like this? But he didn't understand what "like this" meant. Then the angel asked what he was good at. That question left Ji speechless. Good at work? But then he shouted fighting. He was great at that. However, Young wanted to hear something other than that. She asked if Ji had a dream because jobs where you had to fight didn't exist. The guy didn't understand. Was she mocking him? Did they have career counseling and guardian angel training? Young looked at him with her big eyes and asked Ji. What was his childhood dream? A memory flashed before his eyes. A man in the woodshop Ji uniform. That memory completely ruined his mood, and Ji told Young that he didn't have such a dream. But the angel didn't believe him. She stared intently at Ji, who was avoiding her gaze, after which Young thought something needed to be done. Suddenly, a brilliant idea came to her. She told Ji to get a job as soon as possible, no matter what. They would start with what could be done right now. The old man asked if Ji had experience working in convenience stores, but he didn't, so they offered him to do a trial shift today. Ji agreed, and then the man called over the cashier and ordered him to help the newbie and teach him everything. Meanwhile, Young stood behind him, supporting Ji, and soon evening arrived. The cashier explained how to use the register and said to memorize all the names of the cigarettes and hang a sign when he went to the bathroom. And also, it was early evening, so there were no drunks yet. But sometimes students came in asking for alcohol or cigarettes, and he needed to be careful with them. Ji clarified what to do if they came in. In the worst-case scenario, he would get fined for administrative violations. He definitely needed to check IDs. Ji asked if he could beat them up. The man stood in shock at such a question. Then Ji said it had slipped out accidentally. Meanwhile, the first customer just walked into the store. Suddenly, the cashier remembered something. He ran to the stockroom, saying he had completely forgotten to clean up there. Ji was left alone with the customers. They were talking about Myung-hyun, saying he was talking to that loser again, and they asked if they still considered that idiot the main guy. After all, Myung-hyun had been smoking on the roof today, and the San-hyun gang had beaten him up. The guys laughed, saying that now that idiot had become just a punching bag, but they still had to figure out what to do with Hyun-guk and how to ruin his life. They were discussing this right in front of Ji. Then the guy asked the cashier for 5 packs of cigarettes. To which Chon Ji replied that he didn't sell to students. And he thought about how he needed to deal with more than just Myung-hyun. The guy said it was the first time he had seen Chon Ji and asked if that chubby kid with freckles wasn't working anymore. His buddy asked if he wanted to beat him up again. It turned out the cashier was scared of them and was deliberately hiding. He mentally apologized to Chon Ji, but he really couldn't deal with those students. Then the student asked to hand over the cigarettes in the corner where there were no cameras and promised he wouldn't rat Chon Ji out. But the man told them to scram if they didn't want to get beaten up. Those punks were just stunned by such threats, after which they started threatening Chon Ji and playing tough guys. During the conversation, the guys realized they had seen the man somewhere before. Young was watching this and was worried. She begged Chon Ji to endure. Then he just calmly exhaled. He took a pack. Young praised him. This was how to live in society. Chon Ji was holding up well. The student reminded him that he had asked for 5 packs, to which the man replied that there was no difference between hitting with 5 packs or 1. He lifted that pack and waved it around. Then he said he would hit him with it, and then he swung the pack. It flew straight into the student's dumb face. This was a typical move for Chon Ji. He distracted them and then struck, after which he smashed that cigarette pack across the dumb student's face. He flew back a few meters, unable to keep his balance. Blood started pouring from his nose. The others began to defend their friend. How dare Chon Ji hit him? But he was still scared of the man, stuttering and threatening that it was violence against a minor. He yelled at Chon Ji, saying he wouldn't pay for the damage at all. Suddenly, something caught his attention. The guys suddenly fell silent, and their faces twisted in horror as they froze in time. Chon Ji stared blankly like a sheep. When a man in a suit walked into the store, Young saw him and couldn't believe her eyes. A man in dark clothing with a dark, menacing look approached the register. Young yelled at him, calling him Z. It was Sunbae Z. He addressed Chon Ji by name and called him a blasphemer. The guy was in shock and even a bit nervous. Then Sunbae Z told him to step outside. Chon Ji didn't hurry to leave. He asked if he was also an angel like Young, and what kind of god looked like a demon. He told Sunbae Z to get lost and not to bother him. Then the angel raised his fingers and said that if Chon Ji didn't leave, he would end up in the redemption room, after which he snapped his fingers. They both found themselves in a dark room. While Chon Ji looked around, Sunbae Z said he had personally witnessed his disrespect, and as a high angel, he couldn't just walk by. Chon Ji boiled with anger and yelled at the angel. He said that if he was a guan or an old fart, he was the first to provoke him. So if he was a guan, did that mean he could provoke anyone he wanted? He had placed that damn curse on Chon Ji too. Sunbae Z couldn't take it anymore. Listening to Chon Ji rant and call God a farting old man, he suddenly appeared right in front of the guy and told him that he was humiliating God like that. And that's why the angel couldn't be merciful to Chon Ji. He was rude and blamed God for his sins, but at the same time, even he deserved forgiveness. So here in the room of redemption, they would have an exam. Chon Ji said he absolutely hated exams, when suddenly his knees started to hurt like crazy. And that's when he realized he was in deep trouble, really deep trouble. Chon Ji asked to wait because he couldn't fight in this condition. His legs. Then Sunbae Z healed his legs. After that, the angel asked him to give all his excuses at once. For some reason, this made Chon Ji burst out laughing. He just couldn't help it. Then Chon Ji declared that no matter who Young was, even she had faced defeat. However, Sunbae Z looked more intrigued. He was curious how many angels Chon Ji would take down in the end. But this angel wasn't even scared. He just stood there silently, staring. Chon Ji was in shock. Sunbae Z said he wasn't going to use his angelic powers. Chon Ji stared at the angel tense. When suddenly a hand burst through the ground, it appeared right between the two of them. Then the hand just as suddenly disappeared. And from the hole emerged Young, barely finding them. She was so excited. She loved it. The space was definitely Sunbae Z's since the room was just as dark. Then the senior angel told Young not to interfere, as this rat was speaking so boldly to God. But she interrupted him and asked if Sunbae Z was breaking the rules like that. The senior angel was just stunned. Then Young reminded him that other angels couldn't interfere in the protection of a person who was under the care of a guardian angel, even if he was a higher angel. After all, Sunbae Z had just healed Chon Ji's leg, and that was direct interference in the protection. That was a rule violation, and Young said God would probably be very disappointed. Chon Ji loved hearing his angel put that braggart in his place. Then Sunbae Z replied to Young that the rule she mentioned only applied in the human world, so it didn't count in his space. When Young heard this, she felt really embarrassed. After all, Sunbae Z said he had definitely talked about this in class. Did she really sleep through it? But Sha Young replied that angels didn't sleep, so she couldn't have dozed off in class. After that, an awkward silence fell between them. Sunbae Zesh started explaining to Shi Young that he was being sarcastic. And while the two angels were sorting out this pun, Zhongji was just boiling with anger. Shi Young still stood her ground and argued with Sunbae Z. After all, Zhongji was her ward, and protecting him was her direct duty. For some reason, this made him feel really good. He hadn't expected such support. Sunbae Zain asked if Shi Young was planning to interfere with him, and she was, while the two angels stared at each other in silence. Then Sunbae exhaled, and then he said it didn't matter because he couldn't fight like this. After that, he snapped his fingers again, and they found themselves back in the store, everyone standing in the same spots. Sunbae said this time he would back off since Shi Young showed up, but he asked her to behave normally next time. Zhongji said the angel was bluffing. If he couldn't fight Shi Young, then he wouldn't be able to fight someone whose leg didn't work without Shi Young either. He laughed, realizing he just checkmated Sunbae Z. But the angel stepped out and said Zhongji was really mentally challenged. He told Sunbae Z that he was the one who was mentally challenged. Then everyone else finally started moving again. They began to figure out why everything was so strange. Meanwhile, Zhongji just stood there in shock. In the meantime, the cashier was hiding in the back and apologizing. So night had already fallen. Zhongji and Shi Young were heading home. He asked the angel if that jerk in black was her Sunbae. Then Zhongji asked why everyone among them was so crazy and there wasn't a single sane person. When suddenly Shi Young said that Hyunguk had sent her a message. He sent her a photo and told her he had started training, promising to get strong for sure, and thanked Shi Young. In the photo, he was with a teacher in front of a martial arts school. Zhongji was in shock. That idiot actually managed to... Shi Young asked if it was cute, but Zhongji pretended it didn't impress him. The angel changed the subject and asked if she could spend the night at Zhongji's this time, since she could take good care of him. But he didn't understand when she had taken care of him. If Shi Young had just stood in front of that jerk, and that was it. When suddenly Zhongji remembered her words about him being her ward and protecting him being her direct duty. He decided he could be a bit kinder and said he would buy some chicken since he was already in the mood. Zhongji even promised 2 servings. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to another apartment. There was a girl with pink hair, trembling either from fear or excitement. She nervously picked up the mouse. She hovered the cursor over the start stream button. She gritted her teeth. Her eyes were wide open and sweat was dripping down her face. She clicked on start stream. The stream began and the girl's face immediately changed. She became friendly and cheerful. She greeted the viewers, introduced herself as Byeon Oh-jun, and thanked them for coming back. Behind her were some medicine and a glass of water, while Byeon Oh-jun discussed her new camera and the picture quality. Meanwhile, she already had 81 viewers. Byeon Oh-jun was thrilled with the maximum number of viewers and believed she would definitely reach 100 this time. But the comments were not very pleasant. Someone criticized her name. Someone said she was trying too hard to get attention. And overall, her greeting was cringeworthy. Byeon Oh-jun tried to quickly come up with something interesting, something that would change the atmosphere. She decided to dance the Thero 2 dance from an anime. The girl quickly stood up and started dancing. She barely held back her stress and dissatisfaction. But the comments got even worse. They didn't like how she danced at all. Byeon Oh-jun panicked even more. Why did she even start this? It felt like a curse. Some wrote for her to just quit, but most said they were leaving. The number of viewers dropped to 76, then to 69. It happened in just a few seconds. Byeon Oh-jun could no longer contain her anxiety and begged them not to leave. Meanwhile, Zhongji received a message saying he needed to fulfill Byeon Oh-jun's wish. Meanwhile, the scene shifted back to Zhongji's apartment. He handed over a beer and told Shi Young that if she wanted to, she could drink it, and if not, then no big deal. But for the angel, it was a tough choice. It was alcohol, the devil's gift that led people astray. However, on the other hand, she was still a guardian angel who had come down to earth and wanted to experience all the sensations. So there was no avoiding it. She kept drinking more and more. Her cheeks immediately flushed from the feeling of intoxication. And when she finished, she slammed the beer bottle down on the table. Then she screamed with joy. Zhongji said she was overdoing it. But Shi Young didn't care. She was just happy to finally taste beer. She asked for another can, saying that it was no wonder they invented drinking beer with chicken. It was an unbeatable combination. Meanwhile, a few hours passed. Zhongji was cleaning up, while Shi Young lay on the bed, enjoying herself. She told Zhongji that she was a bit weird, to which he replied that she had been weird from the start. But the angel disagreed that wasn't true. When suddenly a strange realization hit her, making the angel angry. What if it was the same thing? Shi-young jumped up from her spot. Ji didn't know what had happened this time. Then the angel, with a very excited expression, said she was going to the bathroom. And while she was shouting her excitement about how cool it was while emptying herself, Ji didn't understand why he had to deal with all this. Meanwhile, it got pretty late, and Ji was going to bed. Shi-young walked along the balcony, thinking about how great it was for people to spend time together. Then she wondered where she would spend the night. Ji told her that she had eaten, gone to the bathroom, and now she could just crash. Shi-young got mad, and he had just said he was trying to be kinder. When suddenly, something caught her attention. She saw Sunbae Z in front of her. He was just staring at Shi-young like some kind of maniac. He was outraged that the angel had nowhere to go and was sleeping just on the construction site. Ji was really a nobody to him. He stepped closer to Shi-young and asked if he could make her a good offer. He asked if she would listen. Meanwhile, a new day dawned. Ji went back to the store where the cashier was telling him that sometimes there were customers who wanted to pay with a credit card, but he couldn't let them do that. After all, if there was even one hole in the calculations, they had to close it. Then he told Ji what had happened during the last shift. After he returned from the stockroom, the store was a mess. Ji tried to quickly come up with a response about what could have happened, when suddenly his phone rang, saving him. It meant that the shift for that chubby guy was ending. He left, saying he trusted Ji. And while the guy thought about what to do alone, suddenly, Shi-young appeared, happy that her ward was finally alone. Meanwhile, Ji thought he should start taking heart medication before he had a heart attack. Shi-young was so exhausted and said she was tired of sleeping on the construction site, to which he asked if the angel at least washed herself. Then she happily declared that she had been roughly thrown out of there. And Ji asked if the angel really needed to be here since this job didn't require his leg to be in perfect condition. Moreover, compared to what he expected, putting up flyers was much harder. And why hadn't he applied here earlier? Ji said he probably hadn't tried because he thought they wouldn't hire people with bad legs in such places. Shi-young said he was worrying for nothing, which made him angry. What could she possibly know? He had endured so much humiliation because of that leg. The angel felt sorry for him, but Ji kept yelling at her that she came to protect him without knowing anything about being a guardian. And then she declared that she knew Ji had a girlfriend. This awful conversation was interrupted by a visitor. It was that girl, Bayan Ojin. She pulled a cap over her head and had a different hair color. Ji was about to greet her and just say hi when Shi-young interrupted him and told him to be more polite. The girl ignored the cashier and just picked out some ramen for herself. She took a lot and threw it all on the counter. Then she simply told them to count it. She wasn't very talkative, and Ji stared at her like an idiot. He was amazed by what she had taken, so much ramen and all different kinds. The girl quickly paid and left just as quickly. Shi-young and Ji stood there in shock, when suddenly the angel asked him if he felt anything. Ji didn't understand. Was he supposed to feel something every time? While she was walking home, she thought about her content plan. First, she would do trying all the ramen from the convenience store, when suddenly someone called out to her, asking if she was the streamer Jacosi. She immediately stopped, frozen in place. It turned out they weren't calling her, but another streamer who was walking by. A fan approached and confessed his admiration. She was filming a video about makeup and other things, and they all chatted pleasantly together. Meanwhile, Bayan Ojin watched this unfold and felt a pang of envy. Suddenly, a brilliant idea struck her. She tossed her ramen bag aside. She pulled a pink wig out of her backpack, and she called out to Jacosi, claiming she was also a fan. She stepped in close to get into the frame. Jacosi was startled by such an enthusiastic fan. Bayan Ojin asked if she was currently streaming from the street. Then she admitted she was also streaming and asked if she could join in. Honestly, Jacosi was a bit taken aback by the request. But Bayan Ojin only saw an opportunity in this person. Jacosi had 500,000 followers. This was her chance. Meanwhile, Shi-young was in a store staring at all the food and just suffering. Everything looked so appetizing. Ji overheard all this and asked if angels were supposed to make money. Suddenly, a brilliant idea popped into her head. She suggested fixing Ji's phone for a fee. He called her crazy. Just then, he received a notification on his phone. It had been a while, and Ji was surprised. He saw Bayan Ojin's name and a mission: fulfill her wish. Shi-young immediately came over to check out the new mission and said it seemed like Bayan Ojin was nearby. They could visit her after work. But Ji was worried about why she had such a hair color. It seemed unnatural. Shi-young decided that maybe Bayan Ojin was an artist, while Ji kept rolling her name around in his head, as if it sounded familiar. The angel asked if they knew each other, but he quickly denied it. Then Jongji speculated that maybe she was teased as a child. Meanwhile, the people standing next to Jae Cozy were fascinated by Bayon Oh-jun, realizing she was also a streamer. They asked her name, and the girl shyly said she wasn't that popular yet. So she quickly seized the moment and said Jae Cozy should promote her. The streamer seemed a bit nervous, as if she didn't want to do it. She said she would just show her on her channel. Jae Cozy raised the camera and introduced Bayon Oh-jun, greeting her followers. While the streamer talked about their unexpected meeting, Bayon Oh-jun couldn't believe her luck. She saw that she had a whopping 8,000 viewers online. Such numbers were beyond Bayon Oh-jun's wildest dreams. Jae Cozy said they should get to know each other first and asked for her name. Bayon Oh-jun was so nervous she was sweating profusely. Her heart was pounding wildly. She could barely stand. For her, this was simply impossible. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to fall. And the wall felt so thin that Bayon Oh-jun could barely keep her balance. She was so mad at herself. Why now? Why was she feeling this way? Then Bayon Oh-jun remembered that her medication was still at home. She was breathing heavily, trying to calm herself down. She clutched the collar of her sweater, as if letting go would make her fall. Jae Cozy asked if she was okay and requested her to introduce herself. Bayon Oh-jun, with a trembling voice, stated her name. The streamer heard it and repeated it for her followers, saying it was an unusual name and asking if it was real. The comments, by the way, were not nice. Jae Cozy talked about the fashion in her area and asked if she should film something with Bayon Oh-jun. The streamer was still talking when suddenly the girl shyly apologized to her. After that, Bayon Oh-jun turned and walked away, even though they were still calling her. Jae Cozy didn't understand this at all. She asked for it and then ran away. Bayon Oh-jun heard this but couldn't do anything about it. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to her apartment. There were open pills and a wig on the table, and Bayon Oh-jun lay on her bed, breathing heavily. Suddenly, laughter erupted from her throat, growing more confident and louder. Bayon Oh-jun laughed at herself. With the streaming craze, she wanted to become a streamer. She felt utterly pathetic. Meanwhile, evening fell. Then deep night came. Suddenly, someone approached her apartment. It was Jongji and Shi-young. They doubted they had come to the right place, but it had to be it. Then Jongji told the angel he would leave. But the angel disagreed, saying if some creepy ajashi knocked on the door, she would definitely be scared. Shi-young told him there were people who left sweet angels outside. Then Jongji reminded her that sweet angels didn't wave knives around at first meetings. So Shi-young left, ordering him to wait for her. The angel wasn't afraid. They walked down the dark corridor to the apartment, when suddenly she saw what she was looking for. It wasn't how she imagined Bayon Oh-jun's apartment at all. There was an intercom on the door. Shi-young immediately realized she needed to lie and mentally apologized to God for the deception. After that, she rang the bell. On the other side, a shy voice immediately asked who was there. Shi-young introduced herself as a neighbor from apartment 302 and asked to talk because there were some scary noises coming from there. Bayon Oh-jun fell silent, only humming. After that, the door suddenly opened. Bayon Oh-jun was afraid to show herself fully, then explained that she was a streamer and maybe it was her broadcast. After that, she apologized, bowing and promising to be more careful. But Shi-young wasn't listening. She was trying to figure out what was up with that hair color. It was probably a wig, since the face looked very similar, and she recognized this girl from earlier in the store. While Shi-young was thinking, Bayon Oh-jun decided to leave, saying she needed to prepare for her stream. The angel asked for just a second. She needed to talk. But the door quickly closed. Shi-young stood there in shock, so she had to go back empty-handed. Jongji teased that the sweet angel also lost. But Shi-young ignored the mockery and reminded him about the girl who bought all kinds of ramen. Jongji didn't understand anything. Who would doubt it? The angel ignored this and simply said it was her. But then Jongji said Shi-young had lost her mind since they had different hair colors. She explained it was a wig. Then Shi-young shared that the girl called herself Street or Stress. Jongji stared at her in shock. Then he suggested to Shi-young that she probably meant streamer. Meanwhile, they found her channel, which was called Bayon Oh-jun TV. Shi-young watched and couldn't understand any of it. Jongji suggested they watch a bit more. He said running their own channels had become very popular lately. Jongji saw a video that was currently live, where the girl had laid out a ton of chicken on the table. For what? Then he explained to the angel that there were those who ate on camera, those who played games, and those who walked the streets talking about fashion and makeup. In short, there were many of them. Shi-young asked why they did it since they could gain weight eating so much. Chon Ji explained that for some, it was a hobby, and for others, it was a job. He added that they got paid well for it. Young just couldn't believe they were actually paid for that. The angel immediately suggested they should try it. At that, Chon Ji was left in shock by such a proposal. He turned to Young and asked again, to which the angel repeated that they could also give it a shot. But in her mind, she was only thinking about chicken. And Chon Ji didn't like that idea at all. Young started explaining that they had to do something no one had done before. She decided to teach people how to fight since Chon Ji was an idiot and didn't know anything else. They would teach moves even Hyun Guk could learn. Chon Ji didn't want to upset her, but that already existed. Then Young began to think hard, sweating profusely. After that, she suggested cutting off Chon Ji's limbs since he was immortal, and then dropping him from a tall building or something like that. At that moment, he doubted Young was really an angel. Meanwhile, they had already turned on Byeon Ojun's live stream, where she was about to eat all that ramen. Young asked if 73 viewers was a lot, but actually not really. And there they watched the stream. At first, there were some comments, then there was music. Then Byeon Ojun was talking again. They silently watched the stream, but the enthusiasm was fading. Then Young said it was lame. Chon Ji immediately noticed she was uncomfortable and awkward because whatever she did looked unnatural. Young asked what Byeon Ojun's wish was, but Chon Ji had no clue. They needed to figure it out. He immediately started typing a message, asking what her wish was. After that, he sent it. Chon Ji wrote under his name, thinking it was the simplest option, to ask directly. But Byeon Ojun started talking about how she wanted to make game reviews, but played poorly. She somehow ignored that question in the chat in general. Then Chon Ji suggested trying through a donation so she would see the message right away. It was impossible to ignore. Young immediately started spitting with indignation. After all, they had to pay money. She felt sorry for it. Chon Ji said the angel was turning into some kind of capitalist. She replied, "I've always been a chicken list." He ignored Young and sent a 1,001 donation, asking about her biggest dream. The donation was read aloud, and the angel was scared because it sounded like his ex-girlfriend's voice. God, what a Neanderthal. Byeon Ojun noticed the donation. It was her first in 3 months since she started streaming, and she thanked him. And then she continued talking about ramen. She didn't even mention Chon Ji's nickname. This already annoyed him. Byeon Ojun had received money. She should at least react somehow. Did she think anyone would want to donate after that? Young heard this and started yelling at Byeon Ojun, calling her a thief and saying she should work for that money. Chon Ji explained that it wasn't that bad and that Young was overreacting. Meanwhile, Byeon Ojun thought about her answer and said she wished happiness and health to her beloved viewers. Young just couldn't believe her ears. She genuinely admired this person. She knew she was a good girl. And Chon Ji said Byeon Ojun was incredibly boring. But then Young said that wasn't her true wish, because God had entrusted her with a mission to fulfill a specific wish, and this was vague. Even if the wish was vague, it was still limited to one person. A wish couldn't encompass multiple people, so most likely she had another more precise one. Chon Ji said she didn't need to explain. He understood it was a lie. He sent another donation asking her to name her personal wish. Byeon Ojun was happy about another donation and realized that this time she should be honest. Suddenly, a message came in asking her to dance 002 instead of all this. Byeon Ojun quickly went along with it and said she would dance now. This irritated Chon Ji so much. Why was she ignoring the question from the person who sent the donation and listening first to some goat? Then he sent another donation, saying she still hadn't answered his question. Chon Ji was outraged that his 3,001 had gone to waste. And Young echoed him, saying her 3,001 had disappeared too. An awkward pause. When suddenly Byeon Ojun replied, saying she wanted her channel to succeed. Chon Ji realized they were in deep trouble. Byeon Ojun added that it was hard for her to explain the reason in detail, but she just had to become famous. Meanwhile, evening had fallen. Chon Ji sat on the steps by the water, and he looked at his phone, which said the difficulty level of fulfilling Byeon Ojun's wish was long. Young explained that this meant there were no deadlines, it was a long-term mission. Chon Ji understood this would be lengthy and tedious, but at least he didn't have to go to hell. Nevertheless, Young advised against slacking off at work because she could report him, and then Chon Ji would be in for a trip to hell. Moreover, while fulfilling a long-term mission, he could receive a special reward from God. When Chon Ji asked what the reward was, Young replied it was a secret. For some reason, that sounded like a scam, but he didn't want to end up in hell. After some thought, Chon Ji stood up and agreed he would have to do as the angel said. He said that Byun Ojin wouldn't respond at all. She couldn't become popular on her own. Shi-young began to realize what Jong-ji wanted to do. He suggested they also become streamers. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Byun Ojin's apartment. She opened her channel with a new video. Finally, she uploaded the video she had spent so long editing. When would Byun Ojin get used to this? She planned to hire an editor once she became popular. Suddenly, she received a notification. Byun Ojin was thrilled that she had just posted the video, and already there was a comment. This was a first for her. Pandora had been watching her videos for 3 months but had never left a comment. She thought Byun Ojin was cool, but it seemed like no one understood her charm. Honestly, it made her a bit sad, but she believed Pandora was right. However, that wasn't the whole comment. Byun Ojin clicked to expand it. There was more. Pandora added that she liked it, that she loved that Byun Ojin was just hers, not everyone's. That sent chills down her spine. It felt very strange and creepy. This was definitely not a good person. Still, since they left a comment, Byun Ojin decided she should respond. She wrote, "Thank you for such interest." Then she joked to herself that maybe her comment would someday be a source of pride for Pandora's family. But a reply from the subscriber came quickly. Byun Ojin figured it was just an interesting video since another comment came in. She opened it and then realized it wasn't just a comment. It was a reply from Pandora. It said that Byun Ojin was much prettier in real life than Jae Kosi. She was already furious. Who was this jerk? There was more in the reply. Pandora added that her dark hair and glasses weren't great. Then Byun Ojin remembered how she had gone to the store that day. Jong-ji and Shi-young had seen her, but she hadn't noticed that someone was watching her. A very strange man in a suit. But the worst part was that Byun Ojin hadn't noticed him. Meanwhile, Shi-young's channel popped up online, where she said she was Jong-ji's guardian angel and was live streaming. He was at work and felt sick from what he saw. Shi-young was eating a pastry and explaining that she hadn't run away from home. A terrible person had thrown her out, so she had to sleep on a construction site. She had 231 viewers, and subscribers were laughing at her, calling herself an angel, and wondering where a homeless person got a phone. However, Jong-ji found something puzzling. Why were so many people watching her? Shi-young was just saying she could flip a pocket knife. Later, she filmed Jong-ji, saying he was her channel manager and the bag of trash that threw her out. Junji. Jong-ji put on a bunny mask and told Shi-young to get lost and not bother him while he worked. The angel said that everything he said spoke for itself, just as expected from a bag of trash. Shi-young asked Jong-ji if he trained for fights. What? Jong-ji thought they were just messing with him. Comments were saying he didn't look like someone who knew boxing, more like a loser who got beaten up the whole match. Then Shi-young asked Jong-ji if he was going to complete the mission. He went quiet for a moment. Was that a threat? After that, he started showing off some fighting moves and asked if Shi-young was satisfied now. Subscribers felt secondhand embarrassment. One wrote that he had been going to the gym for a year and then just practiced against the wall at home. Shi-young showed these comments, barely holding back her laughter. When suddenly a customer walked in, Jong-ji perked up immediately. Did you get the joke? Like bunny ears. Because Byun Ojin had just walked in. They were all staring at her. The girl had come in right on cue. Jong-ji said Byun Ojin always came at the same time and bought a mountain of food. Shi-young said she bought all that just before the stream. Jong-ji suggested they all be friends. The angel went quiet for a moment. Then she asked if Jong-ji could handle it. He didn't get it. Shi-young asked if he could communicate with others. After all, Jong-ji was a psycho and a social phobe. He thought for a bit and raised his hand, admitting everything. Shi-young didn't think Jong-ji cared that much about those traits. So he told the angel to introduce herself for him since she was so normal and sociable. Break the ice for them. Shi-young started shouting that she was a fan of Byun Ojin, but that only scared the streamer. Then the angel said she was also a streamer and shared her channel name. Shi-young immediately turned on the stream and showed Byun Ojin. Jong-ji watched and realized the angel was bulldozing her way through. Meanwhile, she asked Byun Ojin to greet her channel subscribers. She was completely flustered, but managed to say hello. All the subscribers immediately asked who she was. Meanwhile, some time passed. The group was sitting at the table. Byun Ojin was shocked by the proposal to combine channels. Shi-young said she was a huge fan, so she really wanted to film together. Byun Ojin didn't understand what the catch was since she was basically unknown. Jong-ji then admitted they had only started their channel 2 days ago. Byun Ojin immediately started crying, saying they had more subscribers than she did in 3 months. Shi-young slapped that idiot and calmed the streamer down. After that, she pulled out a knife and said that they might not look like much, but they knew a lot. Offered to show it. Shi-young said that if she stabbed Jong-ji with the knife, the wound would heal right away, and she demonstrated this amid his screams. Meanwhile, several hours had passed in their conversation. A lot of beer had been consumed. Shi-young was completely drunk and couldn't hold herself together. Jong-ji was trying to figure things out. Byun-oh-jun started streaming because she didn't like being ignored by friends and wanted to fix her shy nature. She admitted she was quite awkward, so everyone took her very lightly. Shi-young said she completely understood her friend. It was so frustrating. She knew that feeling. Jong-ji told her to stop drinking. After that, Byun-oh-jun threw her phone down, saying that kind of crap had always been around. Jong-ji opened the chat on his phone. There, her friends were calling Byun-oh-jun so Byun and criticizing her for starting a stream and quitting her second job. The entire chat was about humiliating Byun-oh-jun, her style, her name, her job, even her dancing. And she thanked her friends for their opinions and agreed to give them gifts when she became popular. Jong-ji could barely read this brutal horror. He couldn't even find the words to describe it. Shi-young peeked over and asked why they were calling Byun-oh-jun so Byun. Jong-ji tensed up because he understood the whole story perfectly. He asked if Shi-young really didn't get it. The words Oshjum and So-byun are synonyms and translate to P. Her name, Byun-oh-jun, sounded very similar. Jong-ji explained that it was because of her name, and Byun-oh-jun confirmed it. But surprisingly, Shi-young had a satisfied look on her face. She said that hearing those words made her feel very refreshed. After that remark, an awkward silence fell over the angel. Then Byun-oh-jun asked what? Jong-ji quickly covered the angel's mouth while she was talking about the freshness of heaven. He told Byun-oh-jun to think it over. He gave her his number. She could reach out to him anytime. Jong-ji gave her the green light since it seemed she wasn't doing too well on her own. Jong-ji admitted that it was tough for them to run the channel, just the two of them. Plus, Byun-oh-jun had 3 months of experience and could help them out. He added that it was fate they had met by chance and mentioned that Shi-young was a huge fan of his. Byun-oh-jun promised to think about it, but she still wasn't sure if she could give an answer. And with that, they said their goodbyes. It was getting late. Byun-oh-jun was walking home when she suddenly stopped, as if she had forgotten something. She really had forgotten, completely forgotten to ask Jong-ji his name. And he answered, giving her his real name. His answer satisfied her, and Byun-oh-jun continued on her way home. Meanwhile, Jong-ji could finally breathe a sigh of relief. The first part of the problem was solved. However, he had another issue. What to do about Shi-young? While Byun-oh-jun was on her way home, she was reflecting on everything that had happened that evening. She felt a bit embarrassed because she had said all sorts of things under the influence of alcohol. Well, not just a bit embarrassed. She even showed off her little dance move, as if bragging. She let out a sigh of shame. Then she realized that she was obviously feeling lonely. Suddenly, Byun-oh-jun had a revelation. She remembered Jong-ji's name. He also had an unusual name, and she recalled Shi-young's reaction to her. She had been like a mad woman when she saw the streamer. She decided that maybe Shi-young was some kind of fraud. No matter how you looked at it, everything felt strange. Byun-oh-jun thought she didn't have any fans at all. The problem was that she had said all this out loud and hadn't noticed that the strange man had been watching her. And he asked why Byun-oh-jun couldn't have fans. After all, he was there. Meanwhile, the scene shifted back to the store. Jong-ji noticed that Byun-oh-jun had forgotten her cap. Shi-young asked where that idiot was going without it. He said he was going to return it and promised to be quick. He ran off to finish up quickly and thought about how much trouble this whole situation was causing him. Meanwhile, Byun-oh-jun was almost home, and that man seemed to have decided to meet the streamer in person. He had seen everything and didn't like that Byun-oh-jun was actually planning to stream with those weird people. He was sure she didn't need them because she looked her best when she was alone. In fact, he wished Byun-oh-jun wouldn't become popular. He wanted the streamer to be his personal star, someone no one else knew about. Meanwhile, that crazy guy was so caught up in his thoughts that he didn't even notice Jong-ji coming back with the cap. Byun-oh-jun felt so pleased that he was running just to return the cap. Jong-ji said it was no big deal since he hadn't trained in a while. The man watched all this and couldn't contain his emotions. Who the hell was this guy? He could have returned the cap later. Why run all the way here? Jong-ji was definitely flirting with Byun-oh-jun. He barely held back his aggression. His body was trembling. How could this stinky store worker be looking at Oh-jun? Suddenly, Jong-ji noticed the stranger nearby. It was hard not to notice such an obvious stare. Was he about to pop his eyes out? Jong-ji did not like it. He asked the man why he was staring. The man quickly pretended to be looking at a missing puppy poster. Jong-ji was heading home when his leg suddenly hurt again. He cursed under his breath. What the hell was happening again? The man told himself that the stinky jerk wouldn't dare hit him because he was a law-abiding citizen. He wouldn't have the guts. And besides, this was a constitutional country. Damn gangster. Once the man was sure Chon Ji had left, he decisively headed toward Pyong-ojun. She, however, didn't hear or notice anything and was calmly making her way home. So she casually walked into the entrance. She called for the elevator. The doors opened, and Pyong-ojun was about to close the elevator doors, when suddenly the man ran toward her and asked her to wait. Without even thinking, she pressed the pause button. The man barely made it. If he had been a second later, his fingers would have been caught. He stepped in and thanked Pyong-ojun. The elevator started going up. Second floor. Third floor next. Fourth floor. And the man still hadn't exited. Then the elevator stopped on the fourth floor. The doors opened. It was Pyong-ojun's floor. So she stepped out and calmly walked home. But the man followed her. To be honest, she started to feel nervous and even quickened her pace. But the man didn't shorten the distance between them. Then Pyong-ojun quickly grabbed the door handle and then froze. She looked over at the man. Was he stalking her? To her surprise, he turned out to be her neighbor, someone she hadn't met before. The man smiled and nodded, greeting her. In reality, there was no joy in his life. A rude woman had yelled at a sales clerk, and the girl was trying to explain that the cow hooves were clearly overcooked. But the old lady screamed and protested that she was being accused of cheating. She demanded to see the manager immediately. The woman was ready to cause a scene. Then the manager on Jung-pyo, came out. He was very polite and smiling. The sales clerk explained to him that the woman had brought cow hooves for broth that she bought 3 days ago and was asking for a refund. He brought them closer to examine them better. Inside, there were several holes, and it was obvious they had been cooked multiple times. And Jung-pyo promised to look into it. He approached the woman with a smile and asked what the problem was. And Jung-pyo introduced himself and explained that he would help. But the woman interrupted him, saying she needed the director, not some manager. She added that their service was a complete mess. She was an educated person and didn't lose her temper just anywhere. But these workers had completely lost their shame, and nothing was getting done properly. And Jung-pyo just silently listened to the crazy woman. It seemed like her eyes were about to pop out from aggression and anger. The man stayed silent for a second longer, but then his nerves snapped. He lunged at the innocent woman and simply stabbed her. And Jung-pyo didn't even flinch while doing it. She screamed like a madwoman, but no one rushed to help her. When Jung-pyo was done, he tossed the knife, which had somehow appeared in his hand. And the people standing nearby clapped joyfully as if they had just watched an exciting show. And Jung-pyo felt like a hero who had freed the city from thieves. It would have been nice if that were the case, right? But in reality, Jung-pyo just said they would refund her money. He turned to the sales clerk with a smile and asked her to process the refund for the customer as quickly as possible. And Jung-pyo apologized and promised to keep a closer eye on the staff and explain proper behavior with customers. But the woman burst out laughing and asked if the manager really thought he could end things just with a refund. And Jung-pyo barely contained his shock and stupor. "Excuse me?" The woman now demanded that they pay her for her transportation to the store, saying that if they sold decent products, she wouldn't have had to come here at all. So she should be reimbursed for her travel expenses. And Jung-pyo finally showed his stupor and asked how much the expenses were. 30,000 won. She had taken a taxi, and the manager's hands trembled, revealing all his anger. But in the end, he pulled himself together and told the sales clerk to also reimburse the customer for her travel. Life, like a hamster in a wheel, was a painful routine. Someone would probably suggest escaping from such a life. But Jung-pyo was so used to this state that even the thought of escaping didn't appeal to him. However, the one who brought him the joy of a new life was Pyong-ojun. It was as if he had met his fate by accidentally stumbling onto her channel. She turned on the stream again, but apologized for being a bit drunk. Pyong-ojun decided to honestly confess that it had been very hard for her lately. And to tell the truth, she didn't have any talent at all. But Jung-pyo disagreed. That wasn't true. Pyong-ojun promised to work hard and put in effort, and then somehow everyone would definitely find out about her. However, he believed she didn't need to try so hard. Everyone lived productively, but only a tiny minority got paid for it. Pyong-ojun felt like she was telling some embarrassing story, and Jung-pyo asked her not to hurt herself even more by trying too hard. She was already working enough as it was. He asked Ojun to wait, but of course she wouldn't have heard him. A miserable salary that left almost nothing after covering basic living expenses. This was the objective result of his life, which he had gotten by dealing with various scumbags. And Jung Pyo worked hard to prepare that money for Pyong Ojun. He had been saving it for 3 months and hoped Ojun would be happy. She received a notification, looked, and was simply in shock. There was 1,000,000 won. Pyong Ojun was left speechless. Then she remembered that such generosity deserved a thank you. She told Mr. Pandora that she didn't even know how to react to that, when suddenly she remembered she had heard that nickname somewhere before. They had been messaging, and he hinted that he had seen Pyong Ojun in real life. Now she wasn't so joyful anymore. Could it be the same Pandora? But it was also strange that the viewers suddenly became very active. What should she do? It all felt very odd, but it was 1,000,001. Pyong Ojun had to do something. Commenters suggested she stand on her head, do a somersault 50 times. But Pyong Ojun decided to ask Mr. Pandora how she could repay him. He was also reading the comments and thought that standing on her head was a great idea, so he asked her to do it. Pyong Ojun was very motivated and quickly agreed to do it. But to be honest, she wasn't that athletic, so she didn't even know if she could pull it off. And to prove her words, she fell, landing on her back. But Mr. Pandora, or rather En Jung Pyo, still liked it. He liked Pyong Ojun no matter what. And now he felt braver because he knew she would remember him. The game had begun. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to John Jai's apartment. He was coming home with Shi Young on his back. And it could have been much worse, really. At least the angel could still heal his knee, even though she couldn't stand on her own 2 feet. John Ji laid her down on the bed. She didn't even wake up the whole time. And he said it would be the last time. And that she had been drinking and that Shi Young was staying over was obvious. He looked at the sleeping angel and suddenly remembered a situation. When he had fought with Sun Baz and said whether she was asexual or not, he still couldn't bring himself to hit Shi Young, but he wanted to beat that jerk up right then. The man asked what Shi Young had to do with any of this. And then John Jay felt like an idiot for saying something so stupid. So now he looked at Shi Young and wondered why Sun Baozi had reacted that way back then. What if she really had a gender? John Ji thought about it for about 1.5 seconds at most. Then he realized, what did it matter? Better to go to sleep. So he settled down next to the bed, but on the floor. John Ji couldn't really fall asleep with Shi Young's snoring. Was she really an angel? Where did that snoring come from? Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore and yelled at the angel to wake up and stop snoring. And you know what she did? She just laughed. John Z wished her to laugh in hell. He shouted that Shi Yan was getting on his nerves, and why was she even here? He didn't even have a second bed. The angel said that in that case, they could just sleep together. John Ji was completely stunned by such a suggestion. Shi Yan asked what was so strange about it. Did John Ji not want to sleep with her because she wasn't the one? He was even more stunned. Did she really not understand? Then John Z told her to forget it and just go back to sleep, which Shi Yan did, falling asleep in 2 seconds flat. Meanwhile, John Ji stepped out onto the balcony to get some fresh air and think about what to do with the angel. What was she even talking about? What did she mean by the one? Why did Shi Yan keep saying that? Suddenly, his phone buzzed with a notification. So late? It was Byung Ojun. She bragged that she had received a donation of 1,000,000 won. John Ji initially didn't believe it and asked if it was really 1,000,000 and in won. Then he thought about how many idiots there were in the world, and he even felt a twinge of envy. Byung Ojun added that now she felt more confident, so she agreed to work together. Now John Z was incredibly grateful to that idiot who donated a whole 1,000,000 won. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to En Jung Pyo at work. And today he was in an amazing mood. He was walking along, practically dancing. He was even humming a little tune. The shopkeepers greeted him, and he happily returned the greeting. The girls turned around, unable to believe their eyes. Was he dancing? And Jung Pyo thought it was strange too. He had transferred a whole 1,000,000 won, but he didn't regret it at all. He decided he must be an idiot. But then he remembered Byung Ojun's reaction, and he realized it was worth it once again. Meanwhile, half the workday had already passed. Another crazy customer came in. He was shouting that the fried seaweed was coated in sesame oil, but he needed the kind that was coated in perilla oil because he was allergic to sesame. He demanded to speak to management. And Jung Pyo remained calm as always and offered to help resolve such a serious issue. Meanwhile, it was getting dark outside. Another very demanding customer arrived, who just wanted them to admit she was right, legally and morally, and she demanded an apology. And Jung Pyo even got down on his knees and sincerely apologized. Who even cared what those losers said? It wouldn't affect his mood at all. Just the dregs of society. When was his shift going to end? How much longer? He needed to see his little Ojun as soon as possible. This time, she started with an apology for being drunk during the last stream. and Jung Pyo was glad she started earlier this time. She said she wanted to start a new segment called World Championship, Worst Customers. And Jung Pyo decided that Byung Ojun had come up with this segment specifically for him. He wrote that he knew a lot about them and even more. He saw such customers every day. And Jung Pyo hoped that Ojun would remember him and his donation. But she was just picking out some videos, not reading the comments. He was completely stunned. What was happening? He was right here. Why was there zero reaction? Ojun said there were many candidates and asked what she should show. And Jung Pyo concluded that she just didn't recognize him. But then he remembered that Ojun was slow when reading comments. So he decided it would be better to make her happy with donations. He sent 1,001 and said he had encountered 2 terrible customers at work. Ojun commented that he must have worked in customer service. Then she asked Mr. Pomadao 7 which one to choose. And Jung Pyo was stunned again. What was she even talking about? What was Pomadao 7? His gaze suddenly shifted. He looked at the wall adjacent to Byung Ojun's apartment. Suddenly, memories from 3 months ago flooded back. And Jung Pyo was coming home, quite drunk. He had overdone it that evening. It was that state where he felt both hot and cold, nauseous and fine. Suddenly, he stopped in front of Byung Ojun's apartment and stood there for a few seconds, looking around. In that state, he wanted to know which idiot had stuck all those papers up. There were too many letters. Where did all that come from? Honestly, An Jung Pyo couldn't even read the text properly. One of the letters was a bank statement about an account, and it had the name Byung Ojun. That's when he realized he wasn't in front of his own apartment. He had made a mistake. And Jung Pyo raised his eyes to look at the door again, and he realized it was apartment 402. He tossed the letter aside and commented that his neighbor had a strange name. And he went to his own apartment, which was next door. That's how he found out about Byung Ojun's existence, and that she was his neighbor. As usual, in the evening, he sat down at his computer, watched some stream, and went to bed. When suddenly, sounds started coming from apartment 402, as if someone was having an active conversation. And Jung Pyo got angry that it was happening again. He asked himself what that Byung Ojun was up to. Every day, she disturbed his peace with those sounds. She could at least turn down the volume on those speakers. And Jung Pyo opened a streaming platform in search of something interesting. But nothing caught his interest. Was there anything interesting? Everyone had become so boring when suddenly something did catch his attention, or rather, someone. And Jung Pyo opened Byung Ojun's stream, and he immediately liked her for her beauty. Then he noticed the channel name, which was her real name that he had read on the letter. And Jung Pyo's jaw nearly dropped. What were the odds of this coincidence? But that's how he found out about her stream. And now he was just going to punch through that wall between them. He had donated 1,000,000 won, saving up that damn money for 3 months. He had only drunk Americano and hadn't even bought himself a winter jacket. His body trembled with anger, but he didn't dare to hit it. He couldn't expose himself. And then An Jung Pyo concluded that apparently Byung Ojun didn't think that was enough. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the street, where it was pouring rain. And you guessed it, in a bunny suit was John Z. Xian asked if the legendary John Z was scared. She knew how to get to this idiot. So he started denying everything. But he explained that it might be a bit dangerous and unreasonable. However, the girls weren't worried. Byung Ojun started the live stream and greeted her subscribers. Earlier, they had voted on impossible tasks, and the winner was the one whose idea was to hang on a lightning rod during a storm for 5 minutes. They started the timer, and John Z motivated himself, telling himself he was strong and could handle it. After all, it was better than spending an hour in hell. Byung Ojun was still worried about John Z and asked Shayan if it was really safe, and the angel had no doubts about it. The comments exploded with activity. Everyone was curious about what would happen next. Byung Ojun said that John Z was probably struggling, but Shiyan swore it was definitely 100% safe. He wanted to do it himself. Then the angel showed her the phone from which he was streaming, and there were 120 viewers online. Byung Ojun had never seen numbers like that in her life. She hadn't even expected everything to happen so quickly. Shiyan asked if Byung Ojun really wanted to stop John Z now. Chikchirik asked if this was really what they wanted. And then Shiyan yelled at him, telling the idiot that this was exactly what they wanted, and even more. Meanwhile, watching all this was Sunbai Z, and behind him was Sunbai A peeking in. She asked if his username was really Chikchirik. In fact, Sunbai A was pleased that he was worried about his student. It was sweet of him to watch the stream. Although Sunbai Z denied everything, saying he was just keeping an eye on things to make sure Shiyan didn't reveal her powers. However, Sunbai A didn't believe him, as powers were blocked in the presence of outsiders. So what was the real reason? Sunbae Z didn't know what to say. Instead, he asked Sunbae A if she thought lightning would strike. She suggested they bet on it. Meanwhile, 5 minutes passed, and Chon Ji came down, trembling with fear. Byung Ojin was taking care of him and praising him. He asked how many viewers they had, and that number was over 1,500. The comments appreciated that Chon Ji had just come down and was already asking about the numbers. A true streamer. And Xi'an commented that if Chon Ji had been struck by lightning, they would have had 3,000 people. The comments said that Chon Ji must be very pathetic behind the mask, while Byung Ojin was very sweet. Meanwhile, Sunbae Z got his face revealed because he lost the bet. While Xi'an was asking the subscribers to write the next task, Chon Ji was discussing their results with Byung Ojun. In reality, it wasn't easy for him, and it wasn't like he was thrilled about it. But he still asked the little devil Xi'an what the next task was. She had already conducted a poll, and the Godzilla account won, asking for one of them to hold a golf ball in their teeth, while the other had to drive it a distance of at least 180 meters. And Chon Ji already imagined himself doing the task, realizing he would have to take off the mask. He stood there in shock, silent, as if that would help. Then he just cursed loudly. The commentators started egging him on. Chon Ji thought about who would hold the ball. Xi'an knew perfectly well who would hold the ball. And Byung Ojin felt sorry for Chon Ji that he would have to hold the ball. Eventually, he said it made perfect sense for him to hold the ball. And Byung Ojin volunteered to help with that, which was quite unexpected. And Jung Pyo felt down, knowing it would turn out this way. She was now doing such terrible things. He decided to complain about it. Chon Ji told Byung Ojin that she couldn't, but she swore she could. After all, no one but him could make the drive. They started arguing. He told her it wasn't allowed, it was dangerous. Then Xi'an intervened and said they didn't even need to argue about it. After all, they were banned anyway. The angel said this for some reason with a cheerful face. Meanwhile, the weather cleared up outside. Chon Ji reminded her that he had said the idea was stupid. Xi'an said she found it interesting that the rubies by nature were weak in spirit. Chon Ji didn't understand what she was talking about, as Byung Ojin's dream still hadn't come true. He then wondered what her peak of success was, when suddenly someone snuck up from behind and asked if Chon Ji really thought everything would end with a measure of success. It was Sunbae A. She brought coffee and radiated happiness and kindness. Chon Ji was puzzled about who had come, and Xi'an was thrilled to meet the senior angel. While he was trying to figure it all out, she explained that Sunbae was a senior angel of Seraphim. She explained that she had come to check on Xi'an and greeted Chon Ji. He was surprised that Sunbae bowed to him. And was that stars glowing around her? Then Chon Ji shouted that she was real and that she was the real angel. Well, he took his coffee, and Sunbae said that humans were strange creatures. They could dream of more than one thing. Chon Ji agreed with this, while Xi'an didn't understand why this idiot was suddenly speaking so politely to Sunbae, not even cursing. She continued, if God wanted to fulfill a person's wish, he would do it one way or another. There was no right answer. In the end, a dream was fulfilled only for the happiness of the one wishing. That's how dreams worked. Chon Ji suggested that they must have saved the world in a past life. Otherwise, why would God care about them so much? And curse people like him. At that moment, Sunbae said it was time for her to go. She had only come for a minute. Finally, she turned to Xi'an and asked if she had thought about Angel Z's proposal. Xi'an admitted that she was still thinking about it. Chon Ji turned around and asked what they had come up with regarding that evil angel. But Xi'an replied that it was a secret. He thought for a moment and then said he didn't care. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Njongpyo's workplace. This time he was feeling off, acting really strange. In fact, Njongpyo was thinking that he was just a loser. Maybe he hadn't donated enough, and that was the problem? Suddenly, a saleswoman rushed in. And Njongpyo hadn't heard what had happened yet, but he knew there was another crazy customer. The man was furious that he couldn't choose a shampoo without smelling it first. So he opened one. And Njongpyo asked what was going on. It turned out the guy had opened all the shampoo lids to smell them, and the saleswoman was trying to stop him. Then he asked where the manager of the household chemicals department was, and it turned out he was on sick leave. And Njongpyo was furious but was also worried about his facial expression. Was he smiling naturally? He calmed down a bit and went to deal with the customer's issues. The customer got even angrier that they brought the manager, insisting he hadn't done anything illegal. Yet they were treating him like a criminal. And Njongpyo asked the man to calm down, but the customer didn't like being touched. Was that a threat? Did they want to kick him out? The manager was barely holding it together. The man was clearly provoking a fight. Suddenly, it was like he had been replaced, and Zhang Pio forced a smile and tried to calm the customer down. But the guy called him an idiot and demanded to call the police if they wanted to play by the book. That's when Zhang Pio snapped and told the saleswoman that the customer probably had a lot on his plate and asked to show him the exit. The man got so mad about being kicked out that he swung a shampoo bottle, and it smashed on the floor. And Chon Pio watched as the merchandise he had to pay for shattered. Everyone froze in shock at what would happen next. A drop of shampoo hit Zhang Pio in the eye, and he threatened to call the police. That's when the customer realized he had made a huge mistake. Suddenly, Zhang Pio ordered the saleswoman to let him go. She was in shock. Let him go? Then the manager yelled at her. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the men's restroom. There, Zhang Pio was rinsing his eye and trying to calm down after the shock. How many situations like this had he been through? He couldn't even count. But why did it still bother him? His body began to tremble with anger and aggression. And Zhang Pio was irritated by what had happened and his own uselessness. It felt like his eyes were about to pop out. The scene shifted to the security office. Two security guards were chatting amicably. Suddenly, they noticed that the door was ajar. The men found it strange since they were sure they had closed it. Meanwhile, that crazy customer was heading home or off to his business. He was loudly ranting about what had happened. Just idiots. Who did they think they were? If only they knew who he was. Suddenly, he got a phone call. He picked up and greeted his princess, promising that daddy would be home early this time. His Tesla was parked outside. He got inside still talking to his child. He told her how much he loved her and even kissed the phone. Suddenly, a figure appeared next to him. It was a security guard, telling the man to learn how to park properly and calling him an idiot. He was in shock. What was happening? And who was this security guard? The guard was holding a hammer, and it looked like he was threatening him with it. He was wearing a mask, the same kind of mask that John Z wore, and it was now clear he was threatening him. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the police station. There was the man with a wound on his forehead, screaming like a madman that some weirdo in a mask had come out of nowhere and started hitting him with a hammer. The police officer was asking general questions. What did he look like? How tall was he? Etc. But how do you describe what a guy in a bunny mask looks like? The officer was puzzled and started to doubt the victim's sanity. Meanwhile, Zhang Pio was finally heading home. This time he was a bit late. He was dragging that bunny mask behind him, thinking about how he had really done it. He had done it. And what was he supposed to do now? What next? Would he get fired for this? But the real problem wasn't that, because the police could come for him and Zhang Pio would end up behind bars. Common sense was slowly returning. It was impossible because he had turned off the camera and they wouldn't find him there. So now he just had to enjoy this feeling. And Zhang Pio started to feel this strange rush of energy. What was this? Adrenaline? He was enjoying this feeling and his freedom. Meanwhile, Zhang Pio had reached his apartment. He got into the elevator and pressed the button for the 4th floor. The doors closed when suddenly he heard someone asking him to wait. Zhang Pio hit pause. And in walked Pyong Ojin. His heart immediately started racing and his gaze dropped. He wasn't ready for this encounter. When Pyong Ojin turned away, Zhang Pio immediately fixed his gaze on her. But his heart was still pounding because a plan was brewing in his mind. This could be a huge mistake. But still, he asked if Pyong Ojin was planning to continue streaming with them. The girl spun around sharply and asked if she had heard him right. And Zhang Pio guessed he should ask again if she was going to stream with those losers. He said it just like that. Pyong Ojin asked if they knew each other. Then the man said he knew her from the streaming channel and that it sounded like an order not to stream with those hermits anymore. That's when Pyong Ojin realized she was in deep trouble. She hadn't heard him right. And Zhang Pio didn't back down, feeling confident, and added that such pathetic streams didn't suit Pyong Ojin. He was so proud of himself. He said it without a hint of shame. What? Why was he being so bold and cool today? After that, he didn't wait for Pyong Ojin's response and wished her luck on her stream. Meanwhile, they had already reached their floor. The elevator arrived and they both stepped out. As they were leaving, Zhang Pio added that the fact remained that Pyong Ojin had terrible glasses and hair color. The girl stood there in shock, speechless, not knowing what to say, especially when the realization suddenly hit her. And she addressed Zhang Pio as Mr. Pandora. But he didn't seem surprised at all. Instead, he looked pleased. He asked why she didn't want to pay him any attention in a nice way. But it was okay. Now she would start. And Chompyo stepped inside and literally pinned Pyong Ojun against the wall, declaring that he was her #1 fan. But when he saw the girl scream in fear, he froze in shock. After that, Pyong Ojun quickly ran away from this lunatic. He was in shock at himself. What had just happened? Why was she so scared? And Jeonpyo couldn't take it anymore. His irritation and anger were off the charts. He grabbed Pyong Ojun by the arm and started yelling at her. He asked why she was pretending to be scared. Pyong Ojun was so flustered, she didn't know what to say. And Jeonpyo shouted that he had watched all her streams and had donated 1,000,000 won, and she had that reaction. He asked why he hadn't seen her happy face. He was practically drooling. Pyong Ojun barely managed to squeeze out an apology and asked him to let go of her arm. And Jeonpyo kept shouting and asked why she looked at him like he was a stalker. He wasn't that bad, and it was rude of her. Pyong Ojun screamed again, but this time louder, for him to let her go. It seemed like he calmed down for a moment, as if he realized what he had done. Then everything flipped, and he called Pyong Ojun a slut. And Jeonpyo asked if she thought he was an idiot, and added that today he had done something that made him feel completely free. While he was shouting, he suddenly jerked his hand. Pyong Ojun thought that this lunatic had finally come to his senses. But it turned out that Chon Ji had appeared behind her, and then Jeonpyo asked what that loser was doing there. He was so shocked by what was happening. Pyong Ojun completely forgot about their agreement to stream together. Chon Ji reminded her. She was so happy to see him, even though he had come early. Chon Ji wasn't listening to her. He interrupted and asked that loser in Jeonpyo who he even was. The man was in shock, but still didn't let go of Pyong Ojun. Chon Ji realized that he wouldn't get anything out of that idiot, so he asked Ojun what had happened. She said that this man claimed to be her fan. That was enough information for Chon Ji. He had heard everything. After that, he ordered in Jeonpyo to let go of Pyong Ojun's arm. But that idiot just laughed. He said he was invincible today. Chon Ji had no idea what he was getting into. However, the bunny didn't listen to him, interrupted, saying he didn't care, and ordered him again to let her go. And Jeonpyo called him a fool. Did everyone think he was a joke just because he was always smiling? He admitted he had been weak all this time. Chon Ji asked what he was grumbling about, while Jeonpyo pulled a hammer out of his bag. He showed it to everyone and added that he was reborn today. Chon Ji didn't even flinch and ordered him to put the hammer back if he didn't want trouble. But Jeonpyo yelled and told him not to interfere in his business. After that, he hit Chon Ji on the head with the hammer. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Xian appeared with a live stream of these events. Everyone froze at once. And Jeonpyo was so furious, but the live stream definitely sobered him up. Xian told them not to pay attention to him and to continue. She was just filming a vlog, and the video was titled Surprise for Ojun. While Jeonpyo was coming to his senses, Chon Ji reminded him that Jeonpyo had started the fight first. That way, he put all the pieces together and punched Jeonpyo right in his stupid face. Chon Ji hit him so hard that he flew back and dropped the hammer. Meanwhile, it had already gotten dark. Pyong Ojun was taking her dose of medication. Xian watched her with concern. Then she asked if Pyong Ojun was okay and what she was taking the pills for. At first, she didn't understand why such questions. It turned out they were tranquilizers for her anxiety disorder. Then Xian asked how Pyong Ojun managed to stream at all in that case. But she was actually thinking the same thing. After that, Xian decided to support her. Pyong Ojun had nothing to worry about because even if Chon Ji was a jerk in other ways, he was a pro at this. Pyong Ojun didn't initially understand what he was good at. Xian replied, at intimidation. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to apartment 401. It was in Jeonpyo's apartment, and Chon Ji had come over to try to sort things out. So the man had given Ojun 1,000,000 won, and he didn't like her reaction, which made him angry. And he didn't want to humiliate her on the channel. And Jeonpyo was stressed at work and took it all out on Ojun, right? Was he really looking for understanding? The man decided to play dumb and said he just lost his mind. But Chon Ji wasn't the type to sympathize. He said that they were both at fault anyway, so he threatened him not to even think about calling the police, especially since Jeonpyo had hit him with a hammer, which was already a crime. And that loser asked why he felt like he had gotten much more. Chon Ji replied that it was his fantasy. He added that if something like this happened again, that video would go online. So if he wanted to see his face on it, he could do whatever he wanted. After that, Chon Ji asked where that loser and Jeonpyo worked. He was scared and didn't want to say. But Chon Ji demanded it to keep Jeonpyo in check. He warned him not to do anything stupid. Otherwise, he would make sure he got fired. And he would take him down right there if Jeonpyo didn't spill. The coward immediately revealed that he worked at a supermarket, not just any supermarket, but the biggest one in the area. Then Chon Ji calmed down, chatting as if they were old friends. He even politely reminded him to find a new apartment. And he didn't forget to add that the apartment should be very far away. Very. So when An Jungpyo agreed to everything, Chon Ji left, even complimenting the guy. He turned out to be better than expected, but then he suddenly stopped right at the exit. He turned around and told An Jungpyo to keep his word. The man trembled with fear and promised everything. And then Chon Ji slammed the door shut loudly. And Jungpyo waited until that crazy guy was gone, after which he finally exhaled in relief. Tears immediately streamed from his eyes and he was shaking all over. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Chon Ji's apartment. He was in shock, staring at the girls. Then he said no. The girls started begging in unison just for one day. Chon Ji then raised his voice. Where was he supposed to sleep? This wasn't a hotel for them. Did he look like a landlord? Shi-Yan yelled back at him. Why was he always so rude? Pyong-O-chun said she didn't want to stay here. But the angel stood her ground. They didn't know what that psychopath might do. Oi-chun argued that the bandit's lair was the safest place. Then Pyong-Wei-chun said she could stay with her parents. Shi-Yan asked where they lived. It turned out to be 3 hours away from Seoul. A silence fell among them. They all understood that this was not a solution at all. Then Chon Ji intervened and said that, in that case, Pyong-Wei-chun should wait until morning and take the train. Well, nobody had persuaded him to say that. Chon Ji stood on the street. It was pretty cold. He thought about how pathetic he had become, agreeing so easily, getting mad at himself. When suddenly the door opened and Shi-Yan appeared. Chon Ji asked where Oh-chun was, and it turned out she had fallen asleep and was snoring too. And the angel hadn't lied or exaggerated. Chon Ji was just thrilled that another person in his house was snoring. But since they were alone, Chon Ji had something to say to Shi-Yan. The angel listened attentively. Chon Ji wanted to talk about what Sun Bae had said. He mentioned that Sun Bae had offered Shi-Yan something, so he wanted to know what that offer was. He figured it had something to do with him, and it seemed Chon Ji wasn't wrong. Shi-Yan immediately recalled that conversation. It was symbolic that she was in the same spot. Sun Bae had said that recently someone had been stalking guardian angels in the area. Shi-Yan didn't understand what the danger was. But just the day before, bodies had been found in an abandoned house 15 kilometers from there. The bodies of a guardian angel and his rehabilitation subject. From the looks of it, it was a very sweet picture. The guardian angel had truly stayed with his person until the end. And this was already the third case in the area. The guardian angel had been brutally killed, even though his subject was with him. And the subject was even at level 3. Sun Bae didn't know who was behind it, but he was worried about Shi-Yan, especially since Chon Ji was only at level 1, and he wouldn't be able to protect Shi-Yan. So the angel lied to her subject, saying it had nothing to do with him. In reality, Chon Ji had doubts. He suspected a lie. So Shi-Yan lied again, saying they were talking about work in heaven. Then she decided to subtly change the subject, suggesting they brainstorm ways to attract more viewers. Chon Ji was ready to think about it, as that was the only way he wouldn't end up in hell. Shi-Yan recalled that conversation again. Sun Bae had said that Chon Ji wouldn't be able to protect her, so he asked her to think carefully about his offer. But in reality, she hadn't thought about it at all. She had immediately refused. Shi-Yan said that Mr. Chon Ji was much stronger than Sun Bae thought and imagined, and she was sure he would protect her from everything. Meanwhile, a new day dawned, and the scene shifted to the store where Chon Ji worked. They were discussing how Pyong-Wei-chun had taken sedatives, and right now she was out with friends. Chon Ji concluded that meant there wouldn't be any streaming this time. But that wasn't entirely true. Oh-chun would just start streaming later than planned. He pondered. When suddenly, he noticed a group of kids watching him through the glass. But it turned out they weren't looking at him. They were looking at Shi-Yan. They were searching for the angel because they had seen her stream. They quickly realized that the tall guy was Chon Ji, and added that he was just a loser without a bunny mask. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Pyong-Wei-chun. Just as Shi-Yan had said, she was hanging out with friends that day. The group was sitting at a table, greeting her like a star. One of them said that Pyong-Wei-chun's new look was incredible. It must be how celebrity changes you. But she didn't think so. Oh-chun hadn't changed a bit since then. Her friends discussed her new video, saying it was just insane. Of course, they reminded her that their channel had been banned because of that video. But still, they were thrilled that their stream had 1,500 viewers. That was an incredible result. Was that praise from them? They took turns praising Pyong-Wei-chun, saying she would soon become a top streamer. Although she felt shy and asked them not to look too far into the future. Then someone made a toast and suggested they drink to their star, to Oh-chun's success. Her nickname P still hadn't been eradicated. Everyone laughed, whether at the toast or the nickname. But that guy spilled beer on the neighbor. Pyong Wei-chun was already used to that name and just drank beer with them, taking it all as compliments. Thus, a few hours passed and it was already dark. The group had eaten quite a bit. Some even overdid it with the alcohol and fell asleep. That blonde guy said they were idiots because they had agreed to get completely wasted. Then one of them asked Oh-chun if she would stream this time. He said that because of them, the star was unable to stream. It was an honor for them. He asked if it was good to be a star. Then Wei-chun started to argue that it wasn't like that at all. She had just been lucky to meet Shiyan and Zhongji. And a friend agreed, saying that Oh-chun was indeed the third wheel there. A friend advised her to just be more active, or was Oh-chun too shy? And a guy asked if she could introduce him to Shiyan. His friend seemed to get angry. That idiot was at it again. Then she said that Zhongji was very handsome without the mask, and she didn't understand why he needed to hide if he was so good-looking. Then someone said that Zhongji was just a crazy ex-con. Otherwise, why would he hide? But Oh-chun didn't know the answer to that question. Then the friends continued to mock Zhongji, and then a girl suggested they start a live stream right there, because they also wanted to stream. Pyong Wei-chun was stunned by such a proposal. Did they really invite her for this? The others jumped on the idea. They started pressuring Oh-chun to agree quickly. She asked if her friends really wanted this, to which they were outraged by the question. Did she think they were joking? Pyong Wei-chun was shocked. Why had her friend's tone suddenly changed? Then another friend spoke up, saying that Haija couldn't be filmed because her beauty would overshadow Oh-chun. But the girl said that couldn't be true, since their friend was the star. Then they asked Haija if she would like to become a streamer too. After all, she would instantly become popular because of her looks, just filming beauty vlogs. If Oh-chun had somehow made it, then Haija had even more potential. The others picked up the idea, saying to film videos about fashion, and then she would have 1 million views. Then Haija admitted that she didn't like being in the spotlight. Could they even imagine how tiring it was to film herself every day? She added that she would have to be a total attention-seeking whore to easily go through all that hassle. Then Haija looked at Oh-chun and apologized, saying she wasn't talking about her at all. Then another friend asked if it was safe to put her face out there on such platforms. She advised Oh-chun to be more careful. Then a guy intervened and said that it didn't concern her, but there could be perverts with strange tastes. Someone picked up that topic and said that if crazy stalkers started chasing Oh-chun, she might fall in love. And that was entirely possible since she had never had a relationship. That guy said he wanted to give Oh-chun advice like a brother. If a suitor appeared, she had to introduce him. After all, only guys knew what was on guys' minds. And he didn't approve of that jerk Zhongji either. When suddenly her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a reminder that it was time to start the stream. Pyong Wei-chun got up and wanted to leave. But her friends started whining for her to stream with them, or they would be upset. But she decided to go anyway, promising to do it another time. Pyong Wei-chun stood her ground this time and went home. However, some words still lingered in her mind. They had asked if it was safe to put her face out there on such platforms. And then Pyong Wei-chun remembered that incident with the neighbor. She exhaled heavily. It had been a real nightmare that she hadn't even suspected. When suddenly, Pyong Wei-chun remembered she had forgotten her bag. She had left it where she had been sitting, so Wei-chun had to go back. She told her friends about the bag, but they didn't hear her, because they were actively discussing their friend. They said Oh-chun had become too arrogant, that she thought of herself as a star now, but in reality, she had just been lucky to meet Shiyan and Zhongji. But one of them did say to stop, because in such cases they should just be happy for others. The rest told her not to lie, since everyone had seen her face when Oh-chun didn't want to stream. Pyong Wei-chun wanted to listen longer and not reveal herself, but it hurt so much. She could barely hold back her tears. Yet she finally mustered the courage and grabbed her bag. Everyone immediately fell silent. To be honest, most hadn't even noticed how she approached. They froze in shame and anticipation, realizing that Pyong Wei-chun might hear them. When suddenly the girl apologized, saying she had left her bag here. Meanwhile, Pyong Wei-chun had already returned home and turned on the stream. Comments were saying that even with the filter, her red cheeks were visible. This time they were with Zhongji, and the three of them were playing the hardest and most popular game, Turn to Die. There was a bear in the game that was hiding, and then it suddenly turned around and scared them like a screamer. But they weren't scared. They didn't even manage to scream. The game reminded them of the popular show Squid Game. Then the bear turned around again, and the players had to reach it as fast as they could. The friends got ready. This time they planned to win. The bear turned around again, and a warning appeared on the screen telling everyone not to move. Xian was barely holding herself back from moving, telling herself just a little longer, when suddenly Chon Ji poked her. Because she got poked, Xian flinched and clicked the joystick. The angel was in a furious stupor, after which a fight broke out between them. While Pyong Wei-chun tried to hide her irritation, she was trying to focus. Thus, a few hours passed. They were seeing Pyong Wei-chun off, and she was saying that the stream had gone wonderfully. They had 800 viewers. Chon Ji said that compared to that, it wasn't that much. But considering it was a completely unremarkable stream, they were just playing, it was still some result. When suddenly, Xian's expression changed sharply when she saw their earnings. She jumped up, shouting the figure of 320,000 won, and Chon Ji called her a shameless capitalist. Meanwhile, the group had already reached Pyong Wei-chun's house. The friends stopped. No one wanted to go inside. Then Xian said to wait outside while she was going to check if the stalker had left, as promised. Pyong Wei-chun found it strange that Chon Ji let Xian go alone, but he replied that she was someone they didn't have to worry about. So, they were left alone, and an awkward silence fell between them. When suddenly, Chon Ji decided to ask if Pyong Wei-chun was going to take her medication today. To be honest, she felt a bit embarrassed that Xian had told him that. Chon Ji hadn't thought she would feel awkward about it. Pyong Wei-chun pondered. Then she replied that it was probably all because of them. She had gotten closer to Chon Ji and Xian, and before that, she had just been gasping before the stream. But as soon as she started streaming with them, all the symptoms disappeared. It was strange. Chon Ji said it was fine. Then Pyong Wei-chun admitted that she had argued with her friends today. He recalled those people who were hard to even call friends, and Chon Ji was genuinely surprised that Pyong Wei-chun had fought with them. Then she apologized to her friends, explaining that she had forgotten her bag. But then she added that she had never been arrogant. At that point, A-young wanted to say something to her, calling Pyong Wei-chun O-jum, which means P. But Pyong Wei-chun interrupted her, saying she hated that nickname, and asked her not to use it again. Then she told Nam Shik that her appearance hadn't changed. Did he really think Wei-chun would change her style just because of the channel's popularity? Nam Shik started pretending to be clueless, as if she hadn't understood everything. Then Shada chimed in, telling Wei-chun to stop and be more straightforward. Sure, it might have looked like they were talking about her behind her back, but Wei-chun had no right to speak to them that way. They just wanted to have fun together as friends. Pyong Wei-chun was outraged by this. Did Shida really expect someone to believe that nonsense? They were just discussing her. Pyong Wei-chun ordered them not to dare talk to her like that again if they truly considered her a friend. After that, she simply turned and walked away, even though her friends tried to stop her. Pyong Wei-chun recounted the whole story to John Chai and asked if she had overreacted. She still felt embarrassed about her behavior. He told her it wasn't even a fight. If he were in her shoes, he would have just buried them. Pyong Wei-chun got scared and asked if he always solved things with his fists. That question sobered John Chi up a bit. Of course he did, only when they deserved it. And in reality, Pyong Wei-chun envied him because after the argument, she felt terrible. Even though she had vented, she felt bad for her friends. Plus, she worried they wouldn't want to hang out with her anymore. John Chi called her hopeless, to which Pyong Wei-chun thanked him. After all, her streams were now more popular, and her anxiety had vanished, all thanks to the two of them. John Chai told her to stop. Suddenly, he remembered something. He recalled that guy, Hyun Guk, who had stood by his door begging him to teach him how to fight. The guy had been desperate, promising he would run a lot. But John Chi hadn't responded, just ignoring the poor guy. So he told Pyong Wei-chun not to thank him. She didn't know, but it was just a mission. Meanwhile, Xian had reached apartment 401. She peeked inside, deciding to sneak in like a ghost. When suddenly, she saw something she didn't want to. And Jung Pyo was standing there alone. Why was he still here? Then he spoke to She Yan, saying he should thank the angel for the stream. Thanks to her channel, he found Xian faster than he expected. She was shocked that Jung Pyo could see her. Then he turned around. His eyes were completely black, as if they were empty. And Jung Pyo was glad she was here alone now. After that, he suddenly vanished from sight, even leaving a cigarette behind. He grabbed Xian by the throat when she least expected it. The angel didn't have time to react. She was just caught, and she got stuck in the door. And Jung Pyo said he would only kill her this way, because he knew Xian was a guardian angel. Meanwhile, events shifted back a few hours, and Jung Pyo was packing his things, just as John Chi had told him. He was so annoyed by everything those jerks had done to him. when suddenly the lights in his apartment went out. Just what he needed. What happened to the lights? Then a voice said that En Jung Pyo was about to explode. The man screamed in fear. Who was talking to him? Who was there? Then the voice asked him to lend it his body. And Jung Pyo heard the voice coming from somewhere above. And he wasn't mistaken, as he saw a huge black eye there. That's what it was. Someone evil was controlling En Jung Pyo. He said that if Shi-Yan was alone, he would kill her immediately. She could barely speak, but she said that the higher angels had told her about this demon. And something felt very strange to him. What was it that he felt in her? He even loosened his grip. Everything felt so odd. Maybe it was just his imagination. Meanwhile, John Chai was getting annoyed that Shi-Yan was taking so long. Even Pyong Ojin sensed his irritation and asked if she was running late. John Chai didn't understand what he was feeling, but it seemed like something was off. Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore and went after Shi-Yan, while Pyong Ojun told him to wait outside, even though she wanted to go too. For some reason, John Chai ran so fast. What was this feeling? What was it? It was just a terrible feeling. Meanwhile, En Jung Pyo, or whoever he was, threw Shi-Yan to the ground. Then he grabbed her again and threw her harder and farther this time. Shi-Yan hit the door, but thanks to her ability, she avoided the impact and just passed through them. However, because of that, she flew further and hit the elevator hard. And Jung Pyo came out of apartment 401, and now the fight had moved to the hallway. Shi-Yan fought back well and glared at her attacker from under her brow. Then En Jung Pyo ordered the angel to call for God. And then he kicked her to make sure she understood perfectly. After that, he even stepped on poor Shi-Yan. And Jung Pyo commanded the angel to tell God that his servant was dying. She had to ask for help, because one way or another, God wouldn't come to save Shi-Yan, and he knew it, because he never showed up when he was really needed. Suddenly, John Chi appeared and agreed with En Jung Pyo's truth. The man silently looked at the guest. John Chai added that God showed up when he wasn't needed at all, but he was useless. Meanwhile, Shi-Yan was sweetly chatting with John Chi. The man asked how that loser En Jung Pyo had managed to overpower her since she was an angel. And then En Jung Pyo realized that John Chi was Shi-Yan's partner. In fact, he didn't like how that sounded. Partner. Then John Chi asked who En Jung Pyo was, who he was. His eyes were just wild, and his aura was disgusting. He understood this wasn't just some stalker, and he had seen many angels, so he decided to guess. So was he facing a demon? Overall, John Chi didn't know what this stranger wanted, but he had to thank him for beating that annoying angel instead of him. And how he enjoyed that. John Chai said that was enough and ordered the demon to get out of there, or he wouldn't leave him alive. The man just laughed at all of this. This loser hadn't even seen life yet. He had completely lost his fear. John Chai suggested he first ask if he even felt that fear, because in reality, this idiot didn't even know that word. But, of course, except when it came to hell. Before John Chi could finish, the man suddenly lunged at him, and Jung Pyo charged at him. But he certainly didn't expect John Chai to hit that idiot first. The demon got to his feet quickly, but was in shock. But a satisfied look froze on John Chi's face. He definitely enjoyed being able to hit someone without consequences. Suddenly, a similar look of satisfaction froze on the demon's face, and that scared John Chai. And it was no wonder, as his finger twisted immediately. The demon laughed. To him, it was just a joke. Did this mere human really think he could defeat him? But John Chai wasn't scared at all. Suddenly, he told En Jung Pyo that he was bleeding from his nose. The demon got really angry, and John Chi asked if he had ever heard of that. After that, he suddenly jumped up from his spot. His finger immediately healed midair. Shi-Yan had taken care of it. Now it was a solid fist, and that solid fist flew straight into the demon's stupid face. It sent him flying. What a delightful sight. John Chai said it was a holy strike. However, his joy was short-lived. After all, En Jung Pyo was still a demon, no matter what. So he easily flipped in the air and landed on his feet. Although it would have been nice if he had splattered on the floor, but En Jung Pyo still praised John Chi for the good hit. But he was only good among humans. And unfortunately for John Chai, he was fighting a demon, so the next hit was his. Blood spilled from his mouth. He was thrown back very far, several meters away. He was in shock. Who the hell was this guy? Suddenly, his eyes dimmed and were about to roll back. But then they immediately came back into focus. And Jung Pyo commented that John Chai had nearly died. However, he didn't know that this only irritated him more. John Chai now wanted revenge. He lunged at En Jung Pyo, but every hit missed, until the demon finally stopped John Chai. And Jung Pyo said that maybe he was fast, but he was just a human and nothing more.